What is it like being one of the most infamous warlords in the world? I have to start with that question. I'm sorry.
Well, I will be the first to say that I am not a warlord. The movie that was made was called War Dogs, but I think most people, when they say the warlord, is like, you know, someone who runs a militia and generally...
Warlord just sounds so good, though.
Yeah, I'm not to me. I don't want to be a warlord, but yeah, no, I've never led men in battle. I've never suppressed a population's rights or anything like that.
Right.
I did supply weapons and ammunition for a brief period of my life a long time ago.
But you guys did have posters of Nick Cage all over your office, right?
We were fans of Lord of War at the time. Yes, that's true. Yeah.
How did this whole thing start? Like, can you walk me through your childhood meeting Efraim for the first time? What was your guys' childhood like? Were you guys really like smoking weed all day, every day?
At a certain point in our lives, yeah. But not when we first met. We were young teenagers. I'm actually 4 years older than him. And, you know, in the movie, they say we're the same age, but we're not. So I was 4 years older than him. I think I was like 15 or 16 when I met him. So he was like 11 or 12. And we both went, the way we met was both of our families are Orthodox Jews. And so we both went to the same synagogue. We didn't go to the same school, so we didn't know each other from there. We both went to private Jewish schools, but we didn't go to the same school. But we both went to the same synagogue, and neither of us liked to pray. So we would sneak out during prayers and go hang out on the basketball courts. And that's kind of, you know, I had friends who were like 2 years younger than me, and they thought he was entertaining. And so, you know, they befriended him, and that's kind of how he was like brought into my circle of friends, and that's how we met. Yeah.
And so what were you doing? What was your primary source of income back then? And how much influence did your religion have in your early life? Like, were your parents really pushing it hard?
So my dad was an Orthodox rabbi.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, he a member of the clergy. So yeah, he was pushing it hard. But I think even amongst people who know what Orthodox Jews are like, know that you don't need to be a member of the clergy in order to apply large amounts of pressure to your children to be religious. It's a major part of the culture and the community. So yeah, it was a very intense, by relative terms to American society, way of growing up. I never really liked it. Never liked being, leading the religious life. So as I got older, I eventually dropped it completely.
Now, at one point, didn't your parents send you to Israel to study?
Yes. So got in a bit of trouble in high school. They did this random drug test and I came positive for weed, and of course they all thought it was the same as like doing heroin. So they sent me to like outpatient rehab, and, the school was going to kick me out. But they were like, if you go to Israel and study for a year, we'll still give you your diploma. And so, I wanted to go to Israel anyway, because a lot of my friends were going. It's a thing that a lot of Orthodox kids do after graduating high school. They go to a year in Israel and study, and depending on the kind of person you are, more party than study. I was planning to do more of the partying than the studying. So I wanted to go to Israel anyway. So I agreed and went to Israel, ended up staying for 2 years. First year I just partied. The second year I actually studied. And eventually I became a bit religious in my own way, not in the same way as my parents, but more of like a kind of like a hippie, spiritual, meditative type of, flavor of the religion, rather than the traditional way, which is much more based on lots of rituals and, like habitual stuff. That's kind of how most Orthodox the culture is based around, like a lot of very rigid rituals. So I didn't like that, but I did, become a bit more religious until I left Israel, went to University of Florida, took an anthropology course, and realized that everything I'd learned was garbage.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I realized that that at least science contradicted the vast majority of the claims, that of what I was studying in Israel. And so there was no objective proof to at least, the claims that the community I grew up in were making, as far as that goes. So I realized that I didn't have to lead a religious life if I didn't want it. And, that, opened up the possibilities of, finding my own spirituality. And people have this idea of that if you're not religious, you're not spiritual. I think that's completely untrue. Religion is more of a way that, it's a way to create social structure, right? So there's rules and there's hierarchies and there's an official philosophy of like how the world works, etc. Right? Spirituality is your own personal experience. Like I find a lot of spirituality in music. I'm a musician, so when I listen to music and I create music, I feel myself, become on like a different level of consciousness. And I find it very spiritual and very fulfilling. And I connect with myself and with the universe. And, a lot of things that the way people describe, meditating and, or for religious people who go into like very deep prayer. So there's a lot of, connections between spirituality and religion, but they are not the same thing. And I realized that once I wasn't shackled by the traditions of the religion that I grew up with, I could find my own spirituality, and and that was much more effective for me.
Did the role of psychedelics help you develop this point of view, this unique point of view that you had coming from a religious background? And
yeah, so I did experiment with psychedelics and various other things, as many teenagers do. And psychedelics in particular are a very spiritual drug, compared to most of the others. And I, had some pretty deep insights into myself and into, the culture that I grew up in while doing psychedelics. One of the most intense experiences I've ever had was doing LSD by the shore of the Dead Sea in Israel. And like I felt like time stopped, and as if I was like existing in one eternal moment that like never ended. And because there was no time, there was no space. And like I was the universe and the universe was me. And like I felt it and I was it. And I think people who've had these kind of, it's a common experience, actually. I didn't know that at the time, for people on psychedelics to have these types of experiences. And it affected me for years after that, just knowing that that type of experience is possible. Is a very profound, effect.
Is that experience, was it exclusive to LSD, or was it the same like with mushrooms or other psychedelics?
So for me, mushrooms were a bit different. It was more, I think every drug affects every person differently, depending on, their psychological state and the environment they're in, the people they're in, their expectations. The dose they take, makes a big difference. Obviously. But for me, mushrooms have always been, well, once you get past the nausea part, which is not fun, it's been more of like a fun thing. And like you laugh and you see cool things. But with LSD, it's always been a lot more philosophical and introspective for me.
Pardon this brief interruption, but I want to take a minute to talk about this incredible supplement that I've been using for over a year now, after it was recommended to me by nutritional scientist Dr. Dominic D'Agostino on this podcast. I take Dom's advice when it comes to anything related to nutrition, diet, and longevity, because as we get older, these things become more and more important. That is why I started using Verso. Verso is a company that is dedicated to translating scientific breakthroughs into products that hold the potential to increase longevity. I take Cell Being, this one right here, which contains nicotinamide mononucleotide, or NMN-based supplement, paired with naturally derived micronized trans resveratrol and TMG. These two chemicals are actually precursors to what's called nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, which is commonly known as NAD. And NAD is essentially the precursor to energy, cell repair, and longevity. If you've ever tried fasting or even intermittent fasting, and you've gotten that feeling of super high energy or mental clarity, it's because your body is activating these genes called sirtuins, which are actually longevity genes. The downside is, as we age, NAD declines. When I found out I could naturally increase my body's activation of sirtuins and naturally activate my body's production of NAD, I was sold. And it is so much more affordable than doing NAD IV drips. Head on over to ver.fm SO and use the coupon code CONCRETE at checkout to save 15% on your entire order. That's KONCRETE at checkout and get 15% off your entire order, or you can just go to ver.so/KONCRETE. It's linked below. Back to the show.
So I don't know why, one is the other, but that's how my brain chemistry works.
Right. Yeah, that's fascinating. I know that because I know there's a deep connection with psychedelics and ancient religions.
Yeah.
I've learned more about that recently. I don't know a ton of the nuances about it, but I know there's been studies that have shown, like the ancient Greeks and the Romans have took a certain type of plant that was responsible for some psychedelic experiences that can explain some of the texts.
That would make a lot of sense. I mean, when it says that Moses saw the bush burning but wasn't being consumed,
right? The burning, yes.
I mean, I could easily see that while I'm on mushrooms, or mescaline or whatever.
That's fascinating.
So
you're doing this, and had you already become a masseuse at this point? Had you started making money with massage therapy? And
so when I went to University of Florida after Israel, I was 20 years old because I'd spent 18 to 20 in Israel, and I realized that I'd have to pay for my own college, and I didn't want to get a minimum wage job. Because all my friends were flipping burgers and whatever, making $5-6 an hour. And I was like, that really sucks. And I had been in a car crash when I was 17 and got whiplash. And so I always had like neck issues, and I was always trying to fix them. And then while I was in Israel, I was at a music festival, and the local massage school there had free massages, like a booth where they were giving out free massages. And I got my first professional massage there. And it like fixed a lot of my issues, and I was like blown away. And so I realized that I could learn to be a massage therapist and make like $75 to $100 an hour instead of $5-6 an hour. And so I could, do 1 hour of work in a day and make more than my friends were making in 8 hours in a day. And I could learn how to, fix my own issues, and, and it doesn't, hurt with the ladies, that you're a professional massage therapist, they tend to like that too. So it was like a win-win-win. So, massage school, I did an accelerated program. I did it in 6 months, got certified. And when I was 20 years old, I got my massage therapy license and started practicing part-time while I was in college.
And at what point were you sourcing bed sheets?
So
and selling them to what? To who are you selling them to?
Nursing homes.
Nursing homes. Okay.
Yeah, nursing homes and some hospitals.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So
was that something that you concocted, or was that something that you kind of like got the idea from somebody else?
So what had that happened because one of my friends who I had met in Israel, his dad owned a few nursing homes, and his dad put him into business after he came back from Israel, in the nursing home supply business. So he was, buying from wholesalers, bed sheets, towels, various medical equipment, and selling it to his dad's nursing homes, but also to, the other nursing homes in the business. And he told me, but he would only buy from like distributors in the United States. And he told me, look, I know that, because at the time I had gotten into selling SD cards. I was like importing them from China. I found like bulk SD cards in China, and I was selling them on eBay. I was making decent money because they're tiny, they're easy to ship and easy to store. So it was perfect. And so, we were talking and schmoozing, as us Jews say, and
you're schmoozing
with the Jews. So we were talking, and I told him about the SD card thing, and he's like, oh, so you like doing some importing, you know how to find sources, if you find sources for what I'm selling and you give it to me cheaper than what I'm buying it from those guys, I'd be happy to buy from you. So he gave me the stuff that he, would sell, and I started Googling and looking online for sources and started asking for prices. And after, a few weeks, I got, pretty good prices, much better than his distributors were giving him. And so I started importing bed sheets and towels and bibs and things of that nature. Wasn't just bed sheets, but a lot of the consumables, the textiles in particular. And I was mostly sourcing them in Pakistan, because Pakistan apparently is very competitive on towels and bed sheets. And And so I started selling to him. I started selling to other people, and that's how I got into that. But unlike the movie, I never was going like from nursing home to nursing home with a bunch of bed sheets. I was just doing everything in bulk. So like I wouldn't even take possession of the goods, So my apartment was not filled up with bed sheets as they portray in the film.
That's funny.
I wouldn't even take possession. I was just being a broker. Yeah.
It's interesting to me how you had this unique perspective at such a young age to get into arbitrage like that, to get into sourcing things for a certain price and selling them for a higher price. That seems like it's a very rare trait for somebody in their early 20s. I don't think I knew anybody when I was that age that was doing that kind of thing.
Well, my first business I started when I was 6. So it's a cute story. I was living in Israel at the time. So I was born in St. Louis, but my parents moved to Israel for my dad's work because he was a rabbi when I was a baby, and I grew up there until I was 8 years old, then came to Miami. And while we were living in Israel, I was 6 years old, and there was this. We lived in an apartment building that didn't have an elevator or a garbage chute, so you'd need to like take the trash down the stairs to the corner to the dumpster and haul it over into the dumpster. And our mom would ask, the kids to take out the trash, occasionally. I'm one of 9 children, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm number 3 from the top. But because I'm one of the older ones, I got a lot of the work initially before the younger ones grew up. So our mom asked my older sister and I to take out the trash, and we were complaining, it's so hard to take out the trash. We don't want to do it. It's you have to walk so far. You have to go down the stairs. And my dad says to us, you guys are looking at this all wrong, right? Instead of complaining that it's such a chore, you can look at this as an opportunity. Think about all of our neighbors who don't like to take out the trash too, right? What if you go to them and you say, hey, every other day I'll come and pick up your trash and take it to the dumpster, right? Because people don't empty the trash every day. Every other day is fine. And you give me like, a quarter a week, right? And so we're like, oh, money. I like that. So we were like, that's a good idea. So we went to all our neighbors and we made them this offer, and we signed up, I think 7 or 8 neighbors. And we got like our mom's big like shopping cart. It was this wire thing on like wheels, and we'd fill up the cart with like trash bags and ka-chunk ka-chunk down the stairs, and to the corner to the dumpster and empty it. And after about a week, my sister and I were like, this is so much work, because it's physical labor, and we were small. And so my dad goes, and we told our dad, oh, we're going to quit. This is too much work. And my dad says, well, what if you made twice as much money? Would you quit then? And we're like, well, twice as much money. Maybe that's worth it. And he's like, so then tell them that you're going to raise the price. And we're like, but we can't just tell them that we're going to raise the price because we just told them what the price was a week ago. And he's like, but if you don't raise the price, you're going to quit. So they either want it or they don't, right? And we're like, that's true. So we went to all the neighbors and we're like, we're doubling the price to 50 cents a week. And most of them like accepted it. One neighbor complained. They're like, you can't raise the price, double, 5 cents this week, maybe 10 cents next week, but we're like, no, that's the price. We stuck to our guns. He's like, fine, and he did it. And one neighbor quit on us. And from then on, we always saw their daughter take out the trash, which she'd never done before, because I guess they realized, why are we paying the neighbors' kids to take out the trash when we have a perfectly capable kid of our own to do it? So that was the first business. And that lasted, after a few weeks, my sister quit because she just decided she didn't want to do it. And I realized if she quit, I'm getting double the money again. So, so this is totally worth it. So I kept on going for like a few months, and I built up like a big Ziploc bag filled with, shekels, about the value of a quarter. Wait,
this was in
Israel.
Oh, this is in Israel. Still in Israel.
Yeah,
okay.
In Israel. They're shekels. I say a quarter just so people understand what the value is, but a shekel is worth about a quarter. So I had a big Ziploc bag of quarters, and I felt very rich. And every time there would be an ice cream truck that would come by every day, with its little ice cream song. And I would be like, I have money. I could go buy myself an ice cream. And so every day I would buy myself an ice cream, and I became a fat little 6-year-old. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
The money thing is very interesting to me,
Yeah.
how your parents or your father instilled the value. Even at 6 years old, you understood the value of money.
Right. Well, I knew I wanted ice cream. And
You
I
knew you
that,
wanted ice cream, and it
yes.
costed money.
Exactly. Yeah. And my dad was not going to buy it for me. So
Really?
yeah.
So if the ice cream truck came by prior to this,
Oh, my parents never bought us ice cream.
never would buy you
Never.
anything. What would they say to you?
Say,
If your dad, I want ice cream.
oh, it's not a special occasion.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I feel like that's a very rare lesson that gets taught to kids at the age of 6 in this country, especially nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So that is something that got instilled in you in a very young age and stayed with you. And you that's kind of what helped you evolve into the business of arbitraging stuff sourced in different countries, such as bed sheets for old folks' homes and retirement centers and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've always been looking for opportunities. Right. You know, it's just something that.
So it's something that something that you and Ephraim had in common.
Yes,
he was just a little bit different in his tactics.
He definitely was a bit different, but.
So at what point did you and Ephraim reunite?
So we reunited when I was about 23. I'd been in college for a few years. You know, the bed sheets thing was going, the electronics from China thing was going pretty well. He came back, he was 19 years old, and he came back from LA. He had been sent to LA, I think when he was about 16 or so, because he got kicked out of school for smoking weed as well. But his parents, the way they dealt with it was they decided to send him over to work for his uncle. His uncle, you know, I guess the idea was, if you're not going to take school seriously, you're going to work in the real world, you know? And so they sent him over to his uncle, who owns a big pawn shop in South Central LA. And he had him working in the warehouse, you know, moving boxes. But Ephraim became obsessed with guns. You know, I think from a very early age, he was very obsessed with guns. Just, you know, some guys like cars, some guys like guitars, some guys like guns. He was one of those gun guys. And, you know, his uncle sold guns, you know, as most pawn shops do. And so he just became obsessed with it, and he learned about every type of gun and like where it was made and like what the market was like, and, you know, how you could, you know, buy from here and sell to there. He started frequenting the gun forums, the gun boards, I think they call them, and, you know, started buying, you know, used guns from people, you know, under his uncle's name and selling them, and started making like some profit like that. And then his uncle was selling to the local police, the local state, city and state police. And, you know, the way you sell to the government is you have to put a bid in online, and then the government decides who's, you know, the best, you know, price, delivery date, reliability, etc. And so his uncle was doing that, and so he learned how to, you know, bid on these contracts, on these government contracts from his uncle. Worked with his uncle for 2 to 3 years, made a bunch of money, and then claims that his uncle screwed him out of a bunch of money. His uncle claims that he screwed him out of a bunch of money. I believe them both, you know? So it's just, you know, that kind of family. But they've had issues, you know, there. And so he quit and came back to Miami, and decided to start his own company, and this was in 2004. So he started bidding on federal contracts. This was right after the invasion of Iraq, and so there was this huge amount of contracts going to rebuild Iraq, you know, because the United States bombed it and took it over, and now is trying to build a democratic new government. And part of that is arming the you know, their local police and army. And so they needed a lot of equipment to do that. And so they started putting out these contracts, and he started bidding on these contracts. And because he was so knowledgeable about, you know, the gun industry, he was very competitive, and he started winning a lot of these contracts, and, you know, multi-million-dollar contracts.
How old was he?
I think he was 18 when he came back to Miami. Okay. And then he was 19 when we started working together. So he was working by himself in Miami for about a year before we bumped into each other. He came over a mutual friend's house to smoke weed. We were smoking weed together. He asked me, what I was doing these days. And I told him about the bed sheets, about the electronics, the SD cards. And he's like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. You're doing, you're finding sources, you're doing licensing, you're doing
essentially
logistics.
The same thing.
Exactly. He's like, you're pretty much doing what I do, but I'm doing it on a much bigger scale. So, maybe you can come work with me, well, I think you'll make a lot more money. And I was like curious. I was like, how much money have you made? Because he was like 19, and he's like, and he goes to me, he's like, I'm going to tell you, but not to brag. I want to inspire you. And I'm like, he's like, it's complicated because, how much money I have, like money coming in from deals. I, owe some people money. I'm like, how much money do you have right now in the bank? And he pops open his computer and he logs into his bank account and he shows me, and he had 1.8 million in cash in his bank account, and he was 19 years old. And like that blew my mind. I was like, whoa, I don't know anyone and I knew he made it himself. Like his parents, didn't give him that money or anything like that. So I was like, this guy knows a business very, very well. And, I can learn a lot from him. And so I was very inspired because I didn't have nearly that much, with all my, wheeling and dealing of, in my businesses. I was like, he's obviously doing way better than me. Not that I was doing badly. I was more than comfortable and making a lot more money than other kids my age, but he was on a whole other level. So I was like, I want to, I could learn a lot from him. So I was like, okay, I'm in, let's do this. And that's when he started teaching me, like how the government, the procurement system works. And that was when I first started learning about weapons and ammunition and all various military equipment. I had no idea about any of this. I was just a musician, right. Science nerd, massage therapist, but like I never owned a gun in my life. I didn't really care about guns, but that was like his expertise. So he started teaching me all that, and I started learning all that.
How did he learn about the website where you can bid on these federal contracts? FedBizOps.
FedBizOps.
Yeah. How did he find out? Was that from his uncle?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So essentially, you guys would log into this website that had a list of contracts that federal government wanted to hire small businesses for to fulfill.
Correct. Well, it's still there. Anyone can go check it out.
I checked it out today.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. You can find a lot of interesting stuff they're looking to buy. They're looking to buy everything. So it's not just small businesses. They list everything that they want to buy over there. I think they're required to by law, other than I think the CIA has like, probably like a $10 billion dark money budget that they don't have to tell people what they spend it on. But for the vast majority of, the federal government's, I don't even know at this point, so is it like $2 trillion budget, something like that? They have to list, and because by law they have to buy things competitively, because otherwise they're wasting taxpayers' money. They have to get the best deal for the taxpayer. So to do that, they have a website and they list everything that they want to buy and they open it out for bid. Now, different things, depending on what it is, there's different rules, right? So like if they want to buy an F-35 fighter jet, there's only Lockheed Martin makes it, right? So that's what they call a sole source contract. They still need to list it on the site, in order to inform the public.
Really?
Hey, yeah, we're going to be spending this money on this. But it's not an open bid. It's not, you can't bid on F-35s because you don't make it. Only Lockheed Martin makes it. And usually they do something like, for like the sole source contracts, they usually do something called a cost plus contract, where they'll pay the company what it costs them to build the item plus an agreed upon profit margin. Now, NASA has run into a lot of issues with this, which is why a lot of government projects have a lot of cost overruns, because the companies have a big incentive to inflate the costs
after they get the bid.
After they get the bid, because the more it costs them to build, the more dollars they make, because it's a percentage of what they spend. So let's say they have a 2% profit margin. If the thing costs them, $10 million instead of $1 million, they're making 10 times more money, even though their margin is the same.
Exactly.
So, that's why all these government projects are so overrun, but why their cost overruns are so common. So that's for like sole source contracts. But for most competitive contracts, the way it works is it's kind of like eBay. Right? They say we want to buy, 10,000 guns, or 100,000 meals ready to eat, MREs, or boots, or whatever, fuel, anything. And they'll say, we want these items. It has to have these characteristics. We have to have it delivered to this place by this time. Give us your best offer. And then all the companies who are qualified to bid on that can give them their best offer, and the government looks at all the offers and decides which one has the best value to the government, which is a combination of factors. Usually it's a combination of price, delivery date, reliability of the supplier, and then the government decides what's the best deal for them, and then they pick it and sign the contract to that person, and that person delivers, and then they collect their check and make their profit margin.
So essentially, for a couple of 20-year-olds starting out, you can start a business, you can start bidding on some of the low-level contracts, couple $100,000, maybe a couple $1 million, and get your feet wet and slowly build a reputation for yourself for delivering. So
actually the way they work is usually for contracts that are under $100,000 in value, they don't require what they call past performance, which is proof that you've done business with these kind of items before. Right. So because they feel like it's a small enough amount that they can roll the dice on people with no experience. And, if those guys have a better price, hey, maybe they can do it. And if they fail, then, the government it's not such a big deal to the government for $100,000 contract. But once you do a few of those, now you have past performance. You can prove that you've successfully delivered these items to the government. And now you could bid on bigger contracts, like $1 million plus contracts that require that level of documentation and proof that you have, the experience to do that.
Do other countries and other governments have the same system set up? Do you know?
So most governments have a similar system. Now, depending on the the corruption level of the government, some of them are more or less transparent, but most governments, definitely most democracies, have a more or less open a bidding system. Yeah, because it makes sense. They want to get the most bang for the buck. They want to, because they have a limited budget, right? So they don't want to get ripped off, right? The places you find the government getting ripped off usually are places where there's kickbacks being given. So Russia is famous for this. And there's a lot of stories out of Ukraine, like where all the Jeeps had like the cheap Chinese tires and they were like failing on the road early in the war.
Is this recent?
Oh yeah, this is just recent. And early in the war, that was one of the things in the news, that they had they didn't have the proper tires because someone in the Russian military went cheap on that contract and probably pocketed the difference, and then they all their tires failed in the convoy, on the way to Kyiv. That was like one of the issues that they were facing. So that's the downside of having a corrupt system, is that the money isn't spent as efficiently, and the people that you're trying to supply kind of get screwed.
How much attention do you pay to conflicts that are going on now? Like, for example, what's going on in Ukraine? Do you, with your background, is it you automatically drawn to these kind of things and looking at the deep nuances of it?
So I'm just a very curious person in general, and even though my current business has nothing to do with any international military conflicts, I'm just a very curious person, so I do stay up to date. I read The Economist, has I would say medium level depth coverage on most things. So I am very interested in those things, but just from a personal perspective, not
a financial perspective.
Not a financial. I mean, I do deal internationally with my current business, but so I mean, I sell music equipment to musicians now, and we've sold to Russia. Well, we don't anymore, but they weren't a very big market anyway, so it wasn't a big deal for me, But I still pay attention to what's going on in the world. Yeah.
So when you see stories in the headlines of the Biden administration dropping $13 billion in Ukraine, how is that working? That's obviously a broad headline, right? So how specifically is that? All of the $13 billion, is that broken down on websites like FedBizOps and being bid on, or is all of this going to big companies like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon? Right. How does that work?
So the way they do it, at least with Ukraine, I know early in the war, I don't know what they're doing. I'm sure now they've got lots of contracts open for bid, but early in the war, they had to get Ukraine, everything was an emergency, right? So they had to get Ukraine lots of equipment as quickly as possible. And the way they did that, I mean, if they went through the contracting system, it would literally take months, because they have to have a certain amount of time to post the thing, with, like a few weeks for people to notice it and to gather their offers. And then the government needs to analyze it. And then they need to award the contract, and then they need to deliver on the contract. And that takes minimum 2 months, I would say. For the stuff that you need, like military, like licensing for military equipment to move military goods across borders, could be longer because you need overflight permits. If you're shipping guns or ammunition, you need to get specific permission from every country you fly over. So that takes time. So the way the military did it early in the war was they just gave Ukraine from their own stockpiles. So they didn't have to buy it. Okay. So like, for example, like the HIMARS that is in the news, the rocket launching system that is currently, has greater range than the Russian artillery, which is why Ukraine is doing so well, because they could shoot them, out of their range and blow up their ammo depots. That was stuff that the U.S. military already had in stock for their own use. And then they just gave all that to Ukraine on military aircraft, so they didn't, it was much easier for them to get overflight permits. The U.S. military, has already all that worked out. And they have amazing logistics, U.S. military. And now what they're doing is they're trying to replenish their own stockpiles by going, to Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and on all the other Raytheon, all the companies that make all this equipment that they've given to Ukraine, and they're trying to replenish their own stockpiles. So that's kind of how they got the equipment to Ukraine much faster than they would if they did the traditional contracting route.
I just had a former CIA agent in here 2 days ago, and he was working on the counterproliferation efforts in Iran, and he didn't say it, but I got from what he was saying that he did a lot of dealing in Russia too, and what he was explaining about the Ukraine-Russia thing is similar to what you said. He said that Russia's artillery, like if we're talking about nukes, their nuclear capabilities are similar to ours. Probably not as good, but when it comes to like ground artillery, that we are way more advanced than they are.
Yeah, so they have quantity, we have quality. They have massive stockpiles, or at least they did, right? And they've been using a lot of those up now. But they have massive stockpiles, but their technical capabilities are not as good as the West's in almost all respects. They've got ICBMs, so I mean, they can wipe everybody off the map if they wish, and that's a big difference. But like their airplanes aren't as advanced as ours. Their communication systems aren't as advanced as ours. The West is a more technologically advanced organization, than the Russians are. I mean, we have a lot more people. We've been industrialized for a lot longer. So there's good reasons for that. And of course, they've dealt with a horrible history, which has held them back. And they've got endemic corruption, all these things are very bad for, development of society at large and technology, by extension. So it's true. The West is way more advanced, and I would say that, Putin knows that. He knows that the West is much more powerful, and if it came to a conventional war, the West would wipe him off the map easily. It's only the nukes that keep everybody from fighting each other outright.
Right. Yeah. Did you guys, might be a stupid question, but I feel like I have to ask it. Did you guys ever do any deals involving nuclear weapons?
No.
No.
No. That would be Raytheon. That they make the nukes.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, they make the nukes. Sole source contract. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things about your story is that, from my own perspective, I didn't know, if we're just going back a year ago, I didn't know shit about the geopolitical landscape of the world.
Right.
I've learned it by having people like you on here.
Mm-hmm.
But listening to your story and reading that book has been the most entertaining form of learning about the geopolitical world and landscape and militaries than anything.
Yeah.
Like, so when you started this business with Efraim, how much did you know about the relationships between countries and the different games going on?
Almost nothing. I was like, a college student. I mean, I've always read the news, I've always been, curious about the world in general. I was studying chemistry in college at the time. So, I'm a bit more of a scientific bent. And part of that is just, I love knowledge in general. It's just something I enjoy learning about things. But obviously there's infinite realms of knowledge, and the and all of us are ignorant in almost all of them, except our, own little specialty. Right. So, I like being a generalist, that's, knowing a little bit about everything. But I definitely wasn't focusing on geopolitics before, working in that field. I had one of my best friends actually, who ended up being involved in the War Dog story later. He was a political science major. So he was, one of these people who was constantly ranting and raving about, various, conflicts and who's right and who's wrong and, who's going to do what, and, what their response is going to be. So I kind of, I kind of gleaned a lot of information, just by listening to him. And he's very, very knowledgeable about that stuff because he was studying it. But I definitely learned a lot more, during the course of doing business, because I had to. We were doing business with all these countries, and being even countries we weren't doing business with, like Russia, we were being affected by because they were trying to block our overflight permits and things like that. So we had to pay attention, what did the government say recently? Are they going to, are they moving into, various regions? Just an example. We had a 747 aircraft, a cargo aircraft, filled with ammo. This is in the book, that was stopped on the tarmac in Kyrgyzstan, right? And they claimed we didn't have the licensing, even though we did. I mean, the plane wouldn't have taken off if it didn't have the licensing. They always check everything before they take off. But they claimed that we didn't. And we had no idea why they were doing this. And then it turned out that that Russia was trying to get the U.S. out of the Central Asian sphere of influence. And so they were leaning on the politicians in Kyrgyzstan to stop renting their airbase to the United States in Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan is right outside of Afghanistan, and their airbase was being used as a staging place to fly goods into Afghanistan. So Russia was pressuring them to stop letting the U.S. Use their airbase, and eventually the U.S. was like, we really need this, and eventually the Kyrgyz they just doubled the rent. They were renting it, and I think they were renting it for, I forgot the exact numbers, but either for like 30 million a year, and they doubled it to 60 million, something like that. And the U.S. was like, yeah, we'll pay you,
whatever,
even though you just doubled it, and that's like a total mafia move. And they were holding our plane hostage during negotiations. That was like.
Is this the story when you're sitting at sushi and you get the call?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's how the book opens. Yeah,
oh
exactly.
My God.
Yeah,
that's so wild. All right, I want to reel it back a little bit.
Sure.
At what point was this, before or after you started working for Efraim, when you had that big Xbox deal?
So that was our first deal that we tried to do together. It ended up failing, but that's kind of how we started working together. Because I was buying electronics from China, I had come across this offer to. The Xbox had just been released, the original Xbox. This is a while ago. And the Xbox had just been released. And I saw someone like offering, I forgot, it was like a large amount of them online. And they were all sold out in all the stores. And I thought it was like super weird, like how do these people have a large amount?
It was like around 100,000.
Yeah, it was an enormous amount. I don't even remember the numbers anymore. But I think you're more up to date on the numbers now because you read the book more recently. I haven't looked at the book in years at this point. But Yeah, and it was so strange, but like I was like, if this is real, this could make us a lot of money, you know, because there was they were being sold at double to triple the retail price on eBay because they were all sold out. And the thing that made us think it was real was that, you know, it was we eventually broke through a few like middlemen through levels, and Efraim was very good at this. You know, he could like talk on the phone and like just talk the guy's ear off and then get him to refer him to his source and get him to refer him to his source, which was unbelievable. I mean, he's very, very talented at that. And eventually we got to the source, and it was actually a pretty big like electronics distribution company. Like we got, you know, emails from these people, you know, I forgot the name of the company, but they were like, it was like a company that nobody actually know their name, but like it's a B2B because it's a B2B company, they're supplying like electronic parts to like the other big companies, but it was like a multi-billion-dollar company. So it wasn't like they're
wasn't like
around.
Mafia trying to sell it.
Yes, exactly. And they wanted some like, I think they wanted like $20 million, and, you know, Efraim only had 2. So, you know, we tried to line up, you know, a venture fund, you know, it was a hedge fund, actually, a hedge fund to float us the other 18 million. But the hedge fund eventually declined, just saying, you know, it just didn't smell right. You know, there was just something weird about the deal. And they were just like, we don't know what it is. It seems all legit. You know, the payment terms, you know, they were willing to take a letter of credit so they wouldn't get paid until the goods were delivered and all that. So it seemed like it was a relatively safe deal. But the hedge fund was just like, it just doesn't smell right, so we'll pass. And so the deal fell through because we just didn't have the, you know, $18 million to buy 100,000 Xboxes.
So if you had 100,000 Xboxes, what was the plan? To individually list all of them on eBay?
No. Okay. So we actually had contacted buyers from Walmart and Target and the major retailers, and they were ready to go. Really? Yeah. And they were like willing to pay the retail price for them at the time. And they were willing, because they were going to make zero money on this because it was such a hot item. They were willing
games and other things.
Yeah, well, because they call it a loss leader. You know, they'll be like, "Hey, we've got the Xboxes." A lot of people come in the store, and then they buy other things like games or chargers or controllers or other stuff that Target sells. You know, so yeah, so we would have made, if that deal had gone through, we would have made like 20 million in profit. Yeah.
Wow, that's bizarre, man.
Yeah.
And then, so what was the biggest, so every day at the point where you guys start working together, that deal falls through. Are you guys just like showing up together, like making your own schedule? Like we're going to get up every single day and start just scouring this website to try to find deals. Yeah. Like living in his apartment with him, sleeping there and waking up.
Yes.
Daybreak.
So after the Xbox deal fell through, he's like, let's just do the business I know we can make money on. I've been making money on. You know, he starts showing me, you know, how FedBizOps works, the website, and, you know, starts teaching me about all the, you know, the types of guns and stuff that he specializes in. And the idea was that I would actually go after other types of, because he already knew the gun market, but we knew that the fuel market was very big. Energy is very big. So I started going for fuel deals. And my first contract that I actually got with the federal government myself was for 50,000 gallons of propane to a air base in Wyoming. It was a very intense, like, because he you know, one thing I'll give Efraim is that he was obsessed. You know, had an obsessive work ethic. You know, like he would think of nothing other than money the entire day, and like he was literally obsessed. Like we'd wake up, and the second he wakes up, he's like looking at FedBizOps, like over breakfast, you know, before he's like, you know, he's like looking at it, you know, like on his laptop on the toilet, you know what I mean? Like that's all he would do. And, you know, while he's eating, you know, while he's talking, he even told me, he bragged to me that he loved taking calls from federal contractors while he was like having sex with his girlfriend. You know, that like he just loved doing it. I don't know why. His girlfriend hated it, obviously, you know, but like he would like, you know, while having sex with her, like he'd get a call, he'd be like, baby, I gotta take this, but keep on going. You know, and he would actually talk to.
It's like he really modeled himself after Nick Cage.
Yeah, exactly. No, he loved Nick Cage. He loved Nick Cage and Scarface. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so fucking. Yeah. Did you ever just think to yourself, watching him being so obsessed over money 24/7, like Like what? Why was he like this? Was it nature, nurture? What was it?
Right. So I thought about it a lot because, you know, I'm not like that.
Right.
You know, I mean,
it's rare people are like that.
Yeah, almost nobody is. Don't get me wrong. I like money as much as most people, right? And, you know, I've always been entrepreneurial and, you know, I am, you know, motivated and I've worked on my own businesses, but the level of obsession that he had was beyond anything I'd ever seen. Even to this day, I've never seen anyone like that, you know, and it wasn't healthy. Like it wasn't fun. You know, it was actually very unpleasant. You know, working with him was, I mean, I'm sure being him was very unpleasant, but working with him was very unpleasant just by extension because, you know, he expected everyone else to be as obsessed as he was, you know, and he'd get like upset if like, you know, you weren't willing to drop everything in your life to chase this, you know, deal that had a tiny chance of like, you know, completing, you know what I mean? And it's like, I have other parts of my life I'm interested in too. This is not the only thing I want to do, you know, so I'm not willing to work literally, you know, 16 hours a day all the time. Now I did, especially in the beginning and especially when we won our big contract later, the Afghan contract, because I had to. So I was willing to do it if necessary, but I didn't want it to be like a 24/7, 365, you know, day thing because, you know, I wanted to live life as well. So yeah, it was definitely unique, you know, to put it mildly.
Did you ever ask him like, how did you get like this? Did he have did he have a bad childhood?
So his family is very interesting. His grandfather is a billionaire. And his grandfather is this Iranian Jew who you know, like grew up in Iran, and I forgot what year he moved to the United States, but he's, you know, like in his adult life moved to the United States and his grandfather became a slumlord in LA, owns a lot of low income housing. That's why his uncle, who's his grandfather's son, owns a pawn shop in South Central LA because it's one of his father's properties. So now his grandfather is an interesting character, even though he's like a billionaire. And I think, you know, he had like, I think it was 8 or 9 children with his wife. They, after like something like 40 years of marriage or something, they ended up getting divorced. And it turned out that he had never married her legally. They just married like religiously. So she
didn't know?
Either she didn't know or you know, she didn't think of it. I don't know the exact story, but because of that, he tried to give her $0. You know, he was a billionaire and he tried to give her $0.
Right. He thought about this when they got married.
Yeah, exactly. And so she sued him, and I think it was like the largest alimony case in history. I don't know what it ended up being, you know, how it ended up shaking out, but I know it got into the newspapers that she was suing him for like $700 million. So that's like his family, you know, and his uncle is also like, you know, that he worked with, you know, like obsessed with, you know, like an obsessive with money. And, and so, you know, I'm not going to, I know some of his family, and some of his family are very nice. Like his dad is like a real sweetheart. His brothers are great, you know,
really?
Like, yeah. And they're like very different from him,
yeah.
You know, so it's odd that he, you know, it's not like they're all like that, you know, but it was just like, I guess that gene or something, you know, like his grandfather, his uncle, him, you know, it's just like certain people are just like have that, you know,
so his upbringing wasn't much different than his siblings.
I mean, I would assume so. He was the oldest. So, you know, like, you know, I don't know, you know, how that affected him differently, but,
it's fascinating. I think about that all the time, how people, cause I know a few people similar that are like that. And I always wonder, a lot of them had really rough childhoods.
Yeah.
So I mentioned to you before that one of my guests on here met him in prison.
That's right.
Met Efraim in prison.
Yeah.
And Efraim convinced him to write his life story.
Right.
He wrote the life story. Efraim got out with it and used that to sue Warner Brothers.
Right.
For the movie War Dogs.
Right. Matt Cox, yeah.
And Matt Cox, one of the first thing when I asked Matt, I'm like, how, because, you know, I asked Matt, I'm like, how accurate is War Dogs to the story? He goes, well, the story's about Packouz. He goes, the story is not really about Efraim. Efraim's just a character, but for some reason, everyone just remembers Efraim because of his crazy personality.
Sure.
But he said, I said, well, how accurate was Jonah Hill's portrayal of Efraim? He said he made him way too cuddly and nice.
I agree with him 100%. That's exactly right. Everyone who knows Efraim will say that.
He said that the Efraim in War Dogs was a teddy bear compared to the real Efraim.
Absolutely. He's absolutely right. They toned him down. The funny thing is everyone's like, oh, is he as crazy as, you know, in the movie? I'm like, he was way crazier than in the movie, and way of a less nice person than in the movie.
Right.
Like in the movie, he's kind of charming and you know, as he says, like he's kind of like a teddy bear. Jonah really softens his real life character a lot. Yeah, makes him a lot more likable. They did that on purpose. Actually, the screenwriter so the screenwriter of War Dogs, Stephen Chin, he came when they first started writing the screenplay. He came to Miami and met with me for like a week, and interviewed me, recorded the conversations, and he told me while he was writing the screenplay, he's like, look, I'm gonna have to tone down Efraim, and he's like, because we need to make him likable to the audience. No one's gonna want to spend an hour and a half in the theater with. Yeah, I mean that's how Hollywood works. You know, you need to have a certain formula so that it appeals to the mass, to the most people in the population. So they had to add a certain amount of action, because people like action. They have to have a certain amount of comedy, and they have to have a certain amount of like relationship drama, for the girls who they're are getting dragged to the movie by their boyfriends, So so for example, like the relationship drama in the movie, they have me, like lying to my girlfriend about being an arms dealer, and she gets super mad and, like dumps me. And like, that was like, big relationship drama moment. Never happened. Right. My girlfriend knew about the whole thing the whole time. She was totally cool with it. She just wanted me to be making money. We just had a child together, but they made that up because they needed to check that box of relationship drama in a movie in order, to appeal to the biggest audience.
Right. Yeah. Right. Another funny thing Matt told me was one of the most memorable quotes he has from him when he was writing the life story, the manuscript.
Yeah.
He said they were sitting in the cell together, and he was telling him some of the stories and how he dealt with people. Yeah. And Matt said, he's like, you can't just burn every bridge, Efraim. He goes, and Ephraim's response was, there's plenty of bridges, bro.
That sounds like him exactly, and that's how he acts. So he burns every bridge he ever has. Like after he screwed me, out of the deal, someone took my place, and then he screwed him, and then someone took his place, and then he screwed him, and like on and on and on. Like every person he's ever worked with that I know of anyway, has ended on a very bad note, and like it feels like he's been cheated by Efraim. Right. That's just how he works. Yeah.
So when they started production on the movie, was that right after the Rolling Stone article came out they started doing that, or how did it come about? How did they contact you initially, and how much involvement did you have in the production?
Right. So the Rolling Stone article came out in 2011 because So the story actually takes place 2006, 2007, 2008. So I left AEY, the company that we were working under together, Efraim's company. I left in July of 2007. He pretty much informed me that he didn't feel I deserved the money that we had agreed that he would pay me, and I was like, well, then I'll see you in court, and so I left. And then in like March of 2008, the New York Times published their fateful front page article, which was not very flattering about us, and that caused the U.S. Army to cancel the contract and put us in, and the Justice Department decided to suddenly charge us with fraud, and so that created a huge political scandal. Like Congress wanted us to testify. They wanted us to testify in front of Congress, and our lawyers told them, well, they're going to plead the fifth the whole time because there's a criminal investigation. And So then they decided not to have us, but they still, like, it's on, there's C-SPAN clips on YouTube about them talking about us. It's really weird. But that got the attention of Rolling Stone. Rolling Stone wanted to write a feature-length article about us, but our lawyers told us we can, speak to reporters. So the reporter, Guy Lawson, who ended up writing the book, he contacted my lawyer and told him, I can, like, what if I guarantee you that I won't publish anything until you give me permission, until like the legal jeopardy has been done. And my lawyer said, well, if we have that agreement, then you could interview, David. And so we made that agreement, and he also made an agreement with Efraim, and Efraim gave him, I think, 1 or 2 interviews, and then decided that he wanted to do his own thing, like write his own book.
Him and Matt Cox.
Yeah, exactly, which he ended up doing. Exactly. So Guy interviewed me, interviewed Efraim, he interviewed a few of the other people involved in the story, and then he sat on the story, to his credit, for 3 years. While our legal issues were resolved. It took 3 years for all that to be resolved. But by 2011, I was already off. I had been sentenced to 7 months probation, got very lucky, avoided prison. But after that was over, the Rolling Stone article was published, and that got the attention of Todd Phillips. And at the time, he was in the middle of directing Hangover 2. And he thought this was an amazing story, and right up his alley. So he optioned the story, from Guy. He optioned the article, and he optioned my life rights, they call it. Now, he didn't have to option my life rights. The way the copyright, or the way the laws work in the United States, is that if your name appears in any public newspaper or like publication, anyone can make a movie with your name in it, and they can make up anything they want about you. First Amendment, free speech, right?
Really?
Yeah. They don't have to pay you a penny. They could say anything they want. You have no control, because you are considered a public figure if your name appears in the paper. So, to his credit, he didn't have to give me a penny or, be at all, have me involved, but he wanted me to be involved because he wanted it to be a bit more authentic. So they bought my life rights. And because of that, I consulted on the movie. Stephen Chin, the screenwriter, came to Miami and interviewed me for a bit. And, he would call me up occasionally while working on the screenplay to get various details and ask me for more details on like various stories and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I had zero control over the script. They didn't ask my permission for anything. They did send me drafts just to get my opinion on it. And I gave them my opinion, but like they made the movie that they wanted to make. And, and changed it however they wanted.
Were you involved in any of the filming or anything like that? Did you meet any of did the act? I know sometimes actors like to meet the characters. And
Yeah. So I met Todd, the director, Todd Phillips. I met him early before they started filming. He wanted to meet me, and he was scouting locations in Miami, and so he took me out for a drink. It was cool to meet him. And then when and he wanted me to have a cameo in the movie. So I have a cameo in the movie. I'm like playing guitar and singing in the old folks' home, while Miles Teller, who's playing me, is trying to sell bed sheets.
Tarantino,
yeah. And so I went to LA to shoot that scene, and so I met Miles there. And then when they were filming in Miami, they invited me on the set a few times. So I met Jonah Hill and Anna Darmas, and the people who were filming in Miami.
Did Jonah ever meet with Efraim?
He didn't.
No.
Yeah, I don't think I'm not sure if whose choice that was. I'm not sure if it was Efraim didn't want to meet Jonah or Jonah didn't want to meet Efraim. I'm not really sure, but I know that they never met. Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of Leo DiCaprio playing that guy. I forget his name on Wolf of Wall Street. I know he like met him and like spent a lot of time
Jordan
with him.
Belfort.
Yeah, to try to like gather more information and introspect on his persona to try to like portray it better. But
yeah. No, Miles didn't do a character analysis on me. No. They just wanted, Miles to be like, the good guy, which I was happy to let him play. So yeah, I'm happy with his portrayal of me. I've got great hair in the movie. It's perfect.
That's hilarious.
Only Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. One of the first, going reeling back again to the beginning after the Xbox deal, one of the first big arms deals you did was to supply the uprising in Nepal. Is that right?
So we attempted to do that, or I should say, Efraim attempted.
You guys
to do
bid
that.
on that?
No. Okay. So it wasn't to supply the uprising. It was actually to supply the king.
The king, right?
Who was trying to suppress the uprising.
Exactly.
Through one of Ephraim's contacts, they were asking for like attack helicopters and things like that, and he tried to to put together a save the king package, as he called it, but it ended up falling through, and I think because peace broke out, I think is what happened. So like there wasn't enough time to do that deal.
Did you have any objections? Did you talk to him about that? I mean, like, dude, this is like fucked up.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of bothered me, to be honest, because I was like, people are rebelling against a king, and, it's, it's kind of seems to be supplying the tyrant kind of situation. And are you sure that's even legal? And he's like, just let me worry about that. Okay. You just keep on working on your fuel contracts. Yeah, right. So I wasn't involved in that, and I didn't want to be.
So so you guys weren't splitting any kind of profit. It was basically just you would take commission from the deals that you landed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't own his company, like any share in his company. He was still doing his own deals. You
were just basically like your individual broker, sales guy.
Yeah, I was working on a commission. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's interesting. His ability to value money and making deals over anything else. I feel like if you're gonna be in that business, you have to have that mindset.
Yeah,
like you it's a weird moral compass.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't say you have to have that mindset, because plenty of people make a legitimate living legally, and they would argue morally in that business. Like there's some people who say that dealing with weapons or ammunition at all is morally bad, right? Full stop, right? There's those people, and I've met those people, and I've gotten hate from them online and all that.
People that just hate guns, period.
Yeah, in general, but like I don't think right now most of those people would say that, hey, the people supplying with Ukraine with weapons to defend themselves from the Russians, are those people bad? I don't think so.
Right.
I think
those are the same people that are saying give Ukraine more weapons.
Exactly.
More guns, right.
Exactly. Because a gun can kill someone. It could also defend yourself from getting killed. So it's a gun isn't a bad thing on its own. It's a tool, right? Right. It's like nuclear energy. Could supply power. It could make a bomb. A knife could chop up your vegetables or chop up your neighbor. Most technology is dual use, and it all depends on how you use it. That's the key.
That's interesting, man. That's an interesting perspective. Another thing about your story is I didn't see anybody that was involved. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the only guy who might be questionable, I'm not sure, would be the Swiss arms dealer, Thomet. Yeah. But other than that, like, it didn't seem like there were really any bad guys. Like you, Efraim, the guys you were dealing with in Albania, all the middlemen. I didn't really see any bad guys. I just saw people that were taking advantage of opportunities,
right,
to make money. Yeah, they weren't necessarily evil. Does that make sense?
Right. Well, I mean, I don't think anyone views themselves as evil, right? That's even I'm sure Hitler, thought he was doing the right thing, for his people and blah blah blah. It's I don't think very few people consider themselves evil,
right?
But yeah, I mean, it really depends on where you come down on the various politics of what you're involved in. So, I mean, we were supplying the U.S. Army, and they were supplying with our weapons and ammunition the democratically elected governments of Iraq and Afghanistan. And like the government of Afghanistan was fighting the Taliban, and so I didn't feel bad about that,
right.
you know, because I thought that as with all the problems that the government of Afghanistan had, and there were many, you know, lots of corruption, lots of everything, you know, they were way better than the Taliban. And, you know, I thought that on the whole, overall, it's better that for those people to be in power than the Taliban would be. And as we could see now, you know, that the Taliban took over again, it's back to where it was before, and it's way worse for all those people. So, so I think it's you know, I think looking at something as being, oh, you're doing this is bad, right? You know, period, is, you know, life isn't like that. You know, life is complicated, you know, and there's never a good or a bad choice. There's often a bad or a worse choice. And you have to decide, you know, like what's the least bad, you know, and, you know, supporting the least bad solution doesn't mean that you are bad because that solution is not perfect. You know, it's the world you live in. Now, always try to come up with a better solution, you know, and you know, and everyone makes their own decisions of where their limits are, you know, like I know a lot of people would be like, oh, just even touching that stuff, you know, or, you know, the fact that there may be a chance that, you know, that something could go wrong is, you know, too much responsibility. I can't take it, you know, so they won't do it. And other people are like, you know, I don't really give a shit, you know, like, you know, once the guns are out of my hands, it's not my problem, you know? Right. So everyone has to have their own moral compass of like what they're comfortable with. And, you know, I won't say that I was always comfortable in everything that I experienced in that business. There were definitely some things that made me uncomfortable and made me feel bad about, you know, being involved in it. But, you know, I tried to remain true to my values as much as I could.
Who was Heinrich Thomet? Can you explain to people listening who that was and what was his specific relationship to the United States? Right.
So Heinrich Thomet, or Henry, as most people called him, was a Swiss arms dealer. In the movie, he's played by Bradley Cooper, who made no attempt to make a Swiss accent. He sounds like an American in the movie, but whatever.
I can't even imagine what a Swiss accent would sound like.
It's kind of like a very like a softer German accent.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Switzerland, you know, they speak German, Italian, French, and I forgot the fourth language. They have like 4 languages they speak. Okay. So it really depends on which Swiss person you talk to. Well, their accent will change depending on like what language they grew up with. But I believe that most Swiss people speak a form of German.
Okay.
Though it's like a little different than the German, you know, so they sound a little different. But Henry, he also didn't look like Bradley Cooper. He was, you know, Bradley had these like really thick glasses and he looked like he was always hungover, and the character was great. I'm not bashing Bradley. He's a great actor, you know, and he made his own version of the character and he did that on purpose. And, you know, but not based on the real guy. The real guy, he was much more along the lines of a Swiss banker. You know,
how many times did you interact with him?
Several times. I met him in Vegas, like in the movie, but not the way they portray it. Yeah, we didn't just bump into him randomly. We were actually introduced to him by the Ralph character in the movie, who was not a Jewish guy who owned dry cleaners, actually a Mormon guy who owned machine gun factories. His name was Ralph, though.
Tomato.
Yeah, exactly. It changed the character a little bit. But so Ralph had been doing business with Henry for a long time, and he introduced us to him. And so we met him in Vegas, I think the first time. We met him in Paris another time. And we talked to him on the phone a lot because he was one of the best in the business. Like, he had connections everywhere, you know, like especially in Eastern Europe, the Balkans. That was like his specialty, which is how he you know, hooked us up with the Albanian deal, you know, that ended up being our downfall, you know, because he had such good connections there.
And what was his relationship to the US at that time?
Right. So he'd been in business, like, I think he was like Efraim, like since he was 18 years old, and he was like in his 40s at the time. So he'd been doing this business for more than 20 years. And I know that I believe he was on some like Amnesty International report for supplying some dictators in Africa. So he was, you know, on like a State Department watch list. It wasn't illegal for us to do business with him. I do know that, but I don't think he would be allowed to do business directly with the United States. So So that's why, he needed us, to be his kind of like go-between to sell to the United States. And he was an incredible source. He had connections with everybody, as I said, and at incredible prices. So it gave us a competitive advantage, which was one of the reasons why we won a lot of the contracts.
In hindsight, do you think the U.S. government was aware they were using you guys as a proxy to deal with him?
They definitely knew, because we actually put it in the paperwork, before giving us the contract. They actually asked us to list sources of supply, and he was one of them.
Oh,
so they knew it. We weren't hiding it. But either they didn't check or they didn't care. I'm not sure which one that was, but they could have known if they looked.
Yeah. I mean, overall, it seems like the United States government was intentionally turning a blind eye to who you were dealing with, because you guys essentially were. Well, I don't want to get too far ahead of the story.
Right.
So in 2006, when the U.S. government decided to arm the Afghans to fight the Taliban, they originally intended to use a Russian arms company.
Yeah, Rosabaron. Yeah.
And that was made public that they were going to do that.
Yeah. And they actually, so they sent, I think that they sent like a fax, because they still use faxes, governments in general, but particularly Eastern Europe, they love fax. So they sent Rosabaron a fax, like requesting like the list of munitions, and the Russians thought it was a joke, because it was such enormous quantities. They were like, this is not real. And I think they like laughed it off. And then, the State Department had to contact them a few times to say, no, it's not a joke. We really want to buy this stuff. And if I recall correctly, what happened was at some point, the Russians got on the blacklist because they were supplying nuclear technology to the Iranians. And so because they got on a blacklist, now the U.S. couldn't buy from them legally anymore. So they had to put it out for open bid to buy from other sources. Because the Russians were the only ones who could supply the entire contract, every single,
in one fell swoop.
Yeah, in one swoop, a single source, right? Because they have massive stockpiles, as I mentioned earlier. But there's lots of stockpiles spread out around all the other Warsaw Pact countries as well. The Balkans, Eastern Europe, but not a single country could supply all that. So they needed someone like a logistics aggregator, I guess you could call us, someone to, they didn't want to deal with all these different actors, these different suppliers. So they wanted to deal with a single source. So what they did is they put the entire thing up for contract, and asked the middlemen in the business to put together a package for them. And so we went and got quotes from pretty much every country that we could think of that may have these items that we could legally buy from, and put together the best combination of, items of, what it costs, and, what the quality was and where it was, depending on how much the logistics would cost to ship it to Afghanistan. So when we combined all that together, we had a very long spreadsheet, and we got the most competitive price, which was why we won the contract.
How did the $300 million Afghanistan deal come about? What was that conversation like when you first learned about it? This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Ren. Yes, climate change is an incredibly complicated subject. However, the vast majority of scientists believe that human beings are having a negative impact on climate change. Ren is a website where you can calculate your carbon footprint and then offset it by funding a diverse mix of carbon reduction projects like tree planting, mineral weathering, and rainforest protection. By answering a few questions about your lifestyle, you can find out your carbon footprint and how to reduce it. No one can reduce their carbon footprint to zero, so you can offset what you have left after reducing. Once you sign up to make a monthly contribution to offset your carbon footprint, you receive monthly updates from the projects you support. You get to see what your money is spent on with photos and details, with every tree planted, every acre reforested, every ton of carbon offset. I'm a huge fan of Wren's Tree Project. This project helps subsistence farmers in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. While the climate benefits are immense, participants have created over $140 million of economic benefits in addition to sales from carbon credits. It's going to take a lot to end the climate crisis, and you can start helping today by learning more at wren.co. Offset your carbon footprint with Wren. The first 100 people to sign up using the link below in the description will get 10 extra trees planted in their name. Back to the show.
So I first learned about it. I was driving home to have dinner with my girlfriend, and Efraim calls me up, and he's like, dude, you got to get to the office right now. I'm like, I'm about to go have dinner. I already made plans, you know. He's like, fuck that. You want to get rich, or you want to go, you know, like, you want to, like, you know, hang out with your girlfriend. Your girlfriend will be sucking your dick after you have how much money you're about to make, you know. And you know, I'm like, this could wait till tomorrow. It's not an emergency. You know, just tell me. All right. Just tell me over the phone. He's like, fine. I can't believe you're not serious about this. You know, it's like everything, like, you know, it was like everything revolved around like, and so he's like, I just saw this massive contract, and it's all the kind of stuff that we've been dealing with already. So we've got great connections for it. This is going to be the biggest thing we've ever done, you know, and, you know, he's like, it's all Warsaw Pact stuff. So, you know, the U.S. can't get it. You know, they don't manufacture it in the United States. They're going to need to go through brokers, you know, like us, and, you know, they're going to need to find suppliers. And we already have all the past performance for all this stuff because we've already delivered in much smaller quantities, you know, these type of munitions. So he was super excited. And then we, you know, usually we had a deal that we would split, you know, the deals that I worked on 50-50, you know, because he would like put up the money and he would do the final negotiations and we would do the contract under his company and all that. And I would do all the work. And that was kind of like our deal. And he's like, you know, usually we do 50-50, but for this, you know, I already got a lot of these contacts, you know, this is kind of my bread and butter. So we'll do 75-25. But he's like, but don't worry, this contract's so huge, you're going to make millions off this. I'm like, okay, fine. You know, I'm good with it. Whatever.
Did you say initially how big it was?
So we had no idea, you know, like what the final number was going to be because we hadn't gotten prices on it. He just saw the quantities of like munitions that they were asking. And it was like the first item was like 100 million rounds of like AK-47 ammo, 7.62 by 39. There was like 100,000 grenades, you know what I mean? Like there's like millions and millions and tens of millions of dollars minimum, you know? You know, we knew like right away these quantities, we'd never seen them before. It's like literally like 20 times bigger than anything we'd ever seen. And that was like bigger than the biggest things we've seen. So it was massive. And so we started, you know, he started contacting all the people that he, you know, already knew. And, you know, my job was to pretty much scour the internet and the world and find any sources of supply that he had missed, you know, in his few years of doing this. So, you know, for these types of items. So he gave me a list of, you know, all the people he was already talking to. He's like, don't talk to these people. These are my contacts. Anyone else, you know, is fair game. Go for it. So, you know, I spent probably like a month and a half. I don't remember the exact time frame, but of, you know, just like all day, you know, I would go through these massive lists of like arms suppliers that there were these directories online. Half of the entries were like, you know, old and not relevant anymore. And the phone numbers didn't go anywhere, you know, and most of them didn't have email addresses. You have to call up and then they don't speak English and you have to, you know, find the one guy in the factory that speaks English and his English is terrible. And then he gives you a fax number. You have to fax them what you want. And then they like, you know, it's like a whole rigmarole, you know, they're not built for doing business really, because these are like all the remnant where we were finding you know these items were only made in the Warsaw Pact countries because it was all Warsaw Pact munitions. It was all munitions. It wasn't weapons. This contract. It was the idea was to supply the Afghan Army and police for like the next 30 years. You know, that was like the idea, because this was the last year of Bush's presidency. He thought that the next president might be a Democrat, which he was right, you know, Obama, but he thought that the next president would pull out of Afghanistan immediately and leave the Afghans high and dry, which he was wrong. I mean, you know, it took until 2020, or was it 2021 before we pulled out. So Bush wanted to arm the Afghans with as much stuff as possible before he left office. So that's why they did this massive contract. So this contract was just for munitions. So everything that was used in the weapons. So like everything from like pistol ammo to like anti-aircraft rockets and like tank shells and mortar shells and you know, big things, grenades, you know, big things like that. So, but it was all Warsaw Pact, because that's what the Afghans, you know, as for the people who don't know, there's two major weapon systems in the world. There's the NATO standard, which is what the United States and the West uses, you know, like the M16. And then there's the Warsaw Pact standard, which is what the Eastern Europeans, the former Soviet republics, use, like the AK-47. And, you know, they're different like bullet sizes. So you can't like put the bullets of one gun into a different gun because, you know, to the other standard, because it won't fit. So the United States doesn't manufacture Warsaw Pact stuff mostly. So, and they needed massive quantities. So the only place that they were going to make this was in the former Soviet republics. And a lot of the Soviet republics had these really old, you know, they've been building these stockpiles up during the Cold War. You know, which is where we'd already been supplying similar things to Iraq, to the U.S. Army in Iraq, who was supplying the Iraqi army, because the Iraqis and the Afghans were both trained in the Soviet standard. So, you know, that's why they needed that, because the Iraqis were trained with AK-47s, not with M16s.
So that was the reason for wanting that ammo. Okay.
Yes, and there's a good reason for that, because the AK-47 is designed for soldiers with a lot less training. You know, the AK-47, the famous example is the AK-47 is kind of like your Corolla, you know, like it doesn't have the greatest performance, but it lasts forever. You barely need to maintain it, and it works.
Right.
You know,
you can bury it in the mud,
exactly.
pull it out, and it works perfectly.
It's famous for that. Yeah. The M16 is like a Ferrari. You know, it works amazing, but it's finicky. You have to maintain it. It breaks easily. You really know how to use it. You have to know how to use it and practice with it and all that stuff. You know, so you have to be much higher level of training to use NATO weapons in general. It goes to the philosophy of how the West and the East treat their military structures. You know, the Soviet Union, you know, under Stalin, their whole philosophy was just quantity over quality. You know, like they, I remember seeing some documentary about like the tanks that they built. I think it was the T-72s. I forgot which tank, but like they kept on having the bolts like falling out of the tank treads. So they did is they installed this like little piece of wedge of metal like along where the bolts would pass by, so that, you know, like on an angle. So as the bolts, as they're slipping out of the tank tread, they would get knocked back into the tank tread as it would pass this like little wedge, so that they wouldn't have to secure the bolts on the tracks.
Right.
So that's kind of how the Soviets, you know, built that was like their general philosophy. But because they kind of you know, they built it cheap, they were able to build massive amounts, and they were able to overwhelm the Germans in World War II. And that's kind of continued. So they have much lower levels of training of their soldiers than the West does. But they have more of them, and they have, you know, so, you know, it's like a less sophisticated, but it's easier to use. So, and it's cheaper. So the United States, you know, decided to supply Warsaw Pact weapons because, you know, one, the people they're supplying, the Afghans and the Iraqis, already were trained in those weapons, but also, bonus, much cheaper, right, you know, than Western weapons. And the United States wanted to spend as little as possible, you know, in this endeavor. So, so they put out this contract for all the munitions, and we, you know, scoured the internet. We got all the prices, and eventually it took us a few months to gather it all together and to make our very complex spreadsheets, you know, which took into account, you know, the cost of the goods, where it was located, how much it would cost us to transport, you know, to Afghanistan, because Afghanistan is a landlocked country, and it's surrounded by unfriendly countries like Pakistan, which is very unstable. You know, then there's the central, you know, Asian countries. And so you need to really fly everything in there. You can't drive it because it's at high risk of getting, you know, hijacked. If you have a truck convoy going from like the port of Karachi into Kabul, it's not a very safe route. There's a lot of warlords over there who would love to get their hands on a huge convoy of weapons. So you have to fly it. Now flying is way more expensive than shipping, like minimum 4 or 5 times more expensive depending on the route. Usually a lot more. But so because of we had to fly everything, logistics was a major factor in the cost. So we had to, build these complex spreadsheets of like how much it would cost, per volume, per weight to fly it into Afghanistan from various locations. And after we had it all figured out and we got our final price, Efraim decided to put a 9% profit margin on it for us because he figured that everyone else will probably do 10 so that we should do 9, just to undercut them. And turned out that he had, way lowballed it. There's a famous scene in the movie where we find out, about by how much it was. That's a real number. I think it was 53.
I think that scene's actually in the trailer too.
Yes, it's in the trailer. That's right. So it didn't happen like that. We did find out that we had lowballed it by about $52 or $53 million. But we found it out over the phone, which obviously makes for a less exciting scene on film. That scene did happen where, it wasn't me, actually. It was Efraim and Ralph went to Rock Island Arsenal to meet with all the government contracting officers, before they gave us the contract. So they met Efraim in person before giving him that contract. He brought Ralph because Ralph is an older gentleman. So he figured because he's so young, he needed like an older guy to, make them feel a little bit more secure. So yeah, we submitted our bid, and then like a few months later, we didn't hear anything for a few months, and then they suddenly came to us. They're like, "You're in the final stages. We need to do like I think it was like 4 or 5 different types of audits." They wanted to look at our books. They wanted to look at like our accounting system. They sent like a team of people to our office to check us out. They did due diligence on us.
How long from the point where you submitted the bid? Well, actually, first of all, working on the bid. Yeah. It took you how long to work on that, to build that bid?
So if I recall correctly, the initial work was about 1.5 months, something of like intense work. Like I was working all night, because I was always trying to get people on the phone, and they're in like different time zones. And, you have to like, sometimes they'll only call you back. They won't like, everything's by phone for some people. So you have to be like available at any moment, because if you miss their phone call, they won't like call you back for another week or ever, Right. So it was a huge pain to deal with them.
And then you had to include the price of fuel for air transport and everything else.
Yeah, we had to calculate all that. So so that took about 1.5 months.
And what was the price?
So the final price, including our 9% profit margin, sorry
to interrupt. So you came up with the price, and then of what it would cost you, then you just added 9%?
Correct.
Okay.
That's how we did it. And we figured that would be our profit margin. Okay. So including the profit margin, the entire total price was about $298 million. And it, just for reference, the biggest thing that we'd ever done under AEY previously, I think, was like $18 million in total, which, Efraim made a few $1 million from. So that's nothing to sneeze at. He made millions of dollars from that contract, that $18 million, but it was like less than 10%, 7% of the, this other contract.
Now, did you guys, I'm sure you guys went through this with like a fine tooth comb and made sure that it was solid, airtight. What was did you email this quote? Did you mail the quote? What was it like? How did you send it? And what was that moment like where you guys were like, press the button?
Right. So it's interesting because most of the government quotes, you just email it to them, or you like upload a file on their website, depending on which department you're working, the contract is for, sometimes if you're selling to the State Department versus the Army, they have like a slightly different system, or at least they did. I mean, I don't know if they've changed it now, but for this particular contract, and I don't know why they did this, but they wanted everything in paper, paper and CD of all things. They didn't want us to like upload it to the site. So we had to print out everything. It was like a massive stack of papers like that. And, with all the supporting documents and everything, and a CD where we had like spreadsheets on it, certain files that they requested. And then we had to overnight it to them. But Efraim had this horrible habit of always doing everything at the last second. I don't know why, it's just what he did. And so like, we had everything done and we waited until the deadline, like if we overnighted it, it would get to them the next day. So it was like the day before was the deadline. And like, it was like 4:00, the post office is going to close at 5. And, he was just like, oh, should I do 9%? Should I do 8%? What if someone else is thinking 9% because everyone else is doing 10? He was torn, 8 or 9%. Yeah. And he just couldn't decide until I was like, Efraim, you have to decide because it's like 4:30 and we're going to not bid on this if you keep on dawdling. And finally he's like, fuck it, 9%. And we put it into the spreadsheet, printed it all out. And then it was like only 10 minutes until the post office was going to close. We get into his car and he's like going 60 miles an hour down residential, streets, to skidding around corners to get to the post office because he had like only a few minutes later. You're like running in, and we like literally made it by like 2 minutes left, before like it closed, and finally like submitted it. And it was just, I don't know why he did that for like everything. Everything was like at the last second, like everything's super stressed. It was just like, he kind of like lived off the stress, that's just was his personality.
Feeding on the stress.
Yeah.
And then, so after that, there was some signs that they were interested, right?
Yeah.
They like you were describing, like they were calling you, they were trying to audit the company.
Yeah.
And what else were they doing?
So there were a few different audits that they had to do. So first, they didn't speak to us at all for like, I think something like 2 months,
Wow.
Yeah, we were like, oh, well, we probably lost, that's why we didn't hear
You guys
anything.
just kept moving on.
Yeah, we just started working on other things, We're like, okay, we spent the last 2 months working on this huge thing, it's a roll. We thought it was a low chance of us winning.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We didn't think that we had a high chance. We were like, everybody in the industry is going for this contract, including like the biggest players like General Dynamics, multi-billion-dollar company, ATK, like these are like publicly listed companies. They have like a department with like 100 people who are doing what we're doing, just 2 guys, So we're like, these guys have been doing this business for decades and they have like huge teams of people. They're probably going to beat us, but we technically qualify to bid, because we have the past performance. So we could bid. It's not like we're automatically disqualified. So we have to bid, because what if we win? Right. It's like a small chance, but such a big upside. So that's why we bid on it, but we didn't really expect to win. We thought it was a small chance. And then like 2 months later, suddenly they called us up and they're like, we have to do some due diligence. We're making our final decision soon. And part of that final decision, we have to do all these audits. And we're like, whoa, we're like in the final running, like we didn't know that we were the number one choice or anything. We thought maybe they're like, they narrowed it down to like 3 or 5 companies, out of everyone who bid. And I think it was something like 30 or 40 companies bid, something like that. And, they narrowed, I think we thought that they were like narrowing it down, and now they had to do all this like due diligence on all the companies because it's a massive contract. They didn't usually do this. In fact, we never had this done on even the $20 million contract. They never did this. But for a $300 million contract, it's a whole other level of homework that they need to do. And so they wanted, as I mentioned before, they wanted to see our accounting system. They wanted to, they wanted to see what our financials were like. They wanted to see that we were able to afford to deliver on this contract, because the way the U.S. government works is they make an order, and then you deliver to them, and then 30 days later after you deliver is when they pay you, right? So you need, and most suppliers are not going to give you credit. So you need to have the money to finance, to buy the goods in order to sell it to the US government and wait 30 days, before you get paid.
Right.
So, having the money to float that deal, is critical. And so they did a financial audit of the company, and, they did like a sourcing audit. They wanted to know where we were going to get everything. That's where I mentioned that, we listed Henry, or at least Henry's company. And, we had to tell them where we were getting everything, what our logistics plan was. They really wanted us to tell them how we were going to do everything. And they sent, like auditors to our office. We had to, because Efraim had never like done his books like ever. Like he didn't have an accounting system at all. Everything was the seat of the pants. And so they wanted to see an accounting system. So he hired an accountant, and he's like, hey, government wants to see an accounting system. We have to build it. And the guy's like, what, you haven't been doing your accounting like for the last 2 years, and everyone's like, no, I just, transfer money and get paid, and what, I know I'm making money, but that's all that matters, so he had to like go and backtrack on all the deals Efraim had done and input it into an accounting system so that it looked like Efraim had a rock solid accounting system that had been going back a few years. So that was just like one component of it. And and then they asked him to come and meet them in person in Rock Island Arsenal, which is where the contract was being managed out of, and that's when he took Ralph, and met them in person. So yeah, I mean, it was intense.
And they actually did tell him that he underbid by $50 million.
He did, but not in that scene. They told us over.
Right.
I actually am the one who found that out, because I was the one dealing with. This was already after we had won the contract and we were already starting to like deliver. And I was talking. I kind of became friendly with one of the contracting officers. And, I was kind of just schmoozing with him on the phone, and, just talking. And he's like, oh, you guys, you're really kicking ass. You're really saving us some money. And I'm like, oh, is that right? And he's like, yeah, you were like way cheaper than everyone else. And I'm like, really? How much? And he's like, well, I shouldn't be telling you this, but between me and you, you guys came in like 53 million under. I was like, oh my God. And I told Efraim, and he's like, fuck.
Fucking couple of schlemiels.
Yeah. He was so pissed. He's like, we could have made so much more money. Yeah. He was mad.
What was it like? Walk me through when you guys found out you actually had won the contract.
Yeah, so I think it was January of 2007, and I actually was just getting home. I was still doing massage therapy occasionally. I was winning some contracts here and there, but like I still had like a few like old time clients. And, I didn't know like how long I would be in the contracting business. And, the contracting business was like, you like starve for months and then you get a big payday, and then you starve for months and like you bid on like 10 different things and you lose them all, and then you get one contract and it makes up for everything else. It was very unstable. And, I had a kid coming. So I kind of was like keeping my other businesses alive. While I was trying to get into this whole thing.
Because you weren't making any money during all of this from Efraim.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I did win some contracts, but they were relatively small, and Efraim, of course, insisted that I put all the money that I made from the contracts that we had won together into financing the other contracts. So he didn't let me pull any money out, so, and that was eventually how he screwed me out of everything. And I guess that was his plan. I was an idiot and I agreed. He's like, yeah, why should I finance everything? You've got some
You weren't
money.
an idiot. You were fucking in your 20s, dude. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, I trusted him, which I shouldn't have. Yeah. So, but yeah, we all live and learn,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you find out, like, what was going on when you found out?
So I had just finished a massage. I was getting home, just to my apartment. I had a little apartment. I was driving my little Mazda Protege, tiny little car, and he calls me up and he's like, I've got good news and bad news. And I'm like, what's the bad news? And he's like, the first task order is only $600K. The task order, the way they work it is they have the overall contract, or the base contract, and then they have specific orders against that contract. So the whole contract is like 300 million, but then they order pieces of it like at a time. So they'll be like, okay, give me 30 million in the next 3 months. And then after you deliver that, they'll be like, now give me another 50 million, the 3 months after that, so it's like and it was supposed to be over the course of a 2-year period. So legally, the government wasn't required to order the entire $300 million contract. They say they were planning on it, but they weren't legally required to. The only legal requirement for them to order was the first task order that they give you with the award. So, we were wondering, we were like, when we were discussing this, we're like, these numbers, the logistics only make sense if we have the big numbers, because then you get the economies of scale. You could, strike deals with the aircraft providers, for, large numbers of flights and get low transportation costs. But if they only give us if they kind of like, if they turn out to change their minds on ordering these massive quantities, then we're kind of screwed, because then we don't get those logistics deals,
right?
Those logistics discounts, and then we aren't making money, because that's, it's not cheap enough for us to make a profit. And so we were nervous, like, what if the government kind of screws us like that? And so, he's like, well, the bad news is the first contract, the first order, first task order, they call it, is only $600K, which is very small compared to $300 million. He's like, and I'm like, well, we won the contract? And he's like, fuck yeah, we did. And he's like, we're going out to dinner right now. We're having champagne and cocaine.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. And he's like, let's go. He's like, I'm picking you up. And, he takes me to like an Italian restaurant, and like he orders like, champagne, and he's had this like little bullet, it's plastic bullet that like was filled with Coke.
Yeah.
That he could like, sneak Coke under. And he
was right in the middle of the restaurant.
Right in the middle. He had his like napkin, and he was like, like as if he was like blowing his nose, and he like insisted I do so. I was like, I'm not really into cocaine. I never was. I mean, I've tried it, but like never was a big fan. But like he was like insistent. He's like, you got to do this. We're celebrating, He's like, you're drinking more champagne. You're doing more cocaine,
It goes a lot. I mean, it's the perfect drug for that business.
Yeah. Though, it's odd, because he did a lot of drugs, like different types. Like, and the weird thing is that he was functional, like almost no matter how fucked up he was. Like he would be blasted off his mind, and then he would get a call from the government, and he would speak coherently and like just blah, 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 as if he was like sober. And then like, he'd hang up the phone and he'd start teetering around again. It was really weird, really weird. The one thing that I saw fuck him up was when he would take sleeping pills, because he had trouble sleeping. And so he got
much Coke, can't sleep, I
guess. And also stress. I mean, he's been screwing over a lot of people, and who knows, you made a lot of enemies, I don't know what, I'm not going to make a judgment of what kept him up at night, but obviously he was comfortable enough to screw people over. So maybe it didn't keep him up at night, but he couldn't sleep. So he got sleeping pills prescribed. And, after he would take the sleeping pills, he was such a workaholic, he'd still try to continue working, even though he had taken sleeping pills. And sleeping pills, anyone who's taken them knows, and if you try to stay awake after you're taking sleeping pills, your brain doesn't work very well.
Hallucinate.
Like like it's as if you're dreaming, but you're awake, and your logic circuits don't really make sense. Like you start like saying things that are really weird and don't make sense. And so like I would see him like get on the phone with like a contracting officer from the government and start saying things that like were like did not make sense. And I would have to like get the phone. I'm like, Efraim, go to sleep. And I take over. I'm like, excuse me, sir. He's a little tired. He's been working real hard, So so that was the one thing that I saw really messed him up. But like Coke, alcohol, weed, everything else he could get his hands on, he was a big fan of pretty much anything that would mess him up. He could work through all of it.
That's incredible. Yeah. One of the things that really stuck out to me in the book, especially, is like waking up, ripping the volcano bong, and then going to work. Yeah. Like I can't work when I'm stoned like that. Yeah.
Me neither, actually. I mean, I'm a fan of weed, I'll be the first to admit it, but only when I'm like relaxed and like I'm chilling, like I can't work when I'm on weed. My mind wanders, like I can't focus. But he would take huge bong rips and just like go right to work and go on spreadsheets and start scanning FBO and talk to people as if he had just,
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go back to your contract. You get the contract, champagne and cocaine. Now you guys have to start fulfilling the contract. and you guys realize that there is a embargo on Chinese ammunition.
Right.
At what point did that happen, and why did that happen?
Right. So while we were bidding the contract, they had, every time. So whenever they have a request for proposal, a RFP as they call it, right? They always have the rules of like what you have to follow in order to meet their requirements. So like for example, when you're dealing with clothing, they have certain laws that a certain percentage of the material, the textile, needs to be grown in the United States. Certain amount of the manufacturing has to be done in the United States. Could only be transported on like American crewed vessels. If depending on where it's going. There's certain like a lot of like laws that have been built up over the years, and you have to kind of navigate that when you're dealing with the government. One of the things in the request for proposal for the Afghan contract was that they specifically said no Chinese ammunition may be supplied either directly or indirectly under this contract. And the reason they put that there was because there's an arms embargo against China. There has been one since 1989, since the Tiananmen Square massacre, when a bunch of Chinese students protested. They wanted democracy, and the Chinese government famously like killed a lot of them. Like there's a very famous picture, I think called Tank Man, where there's like a line of tanks and there's a Chinese protester who's like standing in front of the line of tanks. That's part of the Tiananmen Square massacre. And that was huge worldwide news back in 1989, and to punish the Chinese military for brutally suppressing the democratic movement, the United States put an arms embargo against the Chinese military. So it's illegal for U.S. citizens to either sell or buy military equipment from the Chinese, or from Chinese military companies, as they call them.
Which seems silly, because what did it do? We buy everything else from China.
Right. Well, I guess the idea was that we're not directly supporting the organization that killed all these protesters, like the Chinese army. Now, of course, when we're buying our iPhones from China, Foxconn is paying taxes to the Chinese government, who's using those taxes to buy equipment for their military. So it's not a big thing, but I guess it was a way to punish the Chinese military for doing that.
Okay.
And this is something the United States does often. Like as I mentioned earlier, they put the Russians on the blacklist for supplying the Iranians with nuclear technology. So, U.S. citizens can't deal with the Russians, for military goods.
It's more like about sending a signal or something.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. It's like sanctions in general. The United States uses its economic power to punish organizations and countries that they want to punish without actually coming to physical violence with them. It's like it's using
it's more powerful, honestly.
Yes. Well, I mean, it depends on, there's nothing more powerful than a bullet and a gun, but it's a good way to exert influence without having to resort to violence. It's economic warfare is what it is, and that we're seeing that in a big way in with Russia now.
Right.
And they're going way further with Russia now than they did with anyone, really, actually. The sanctions are much more intensive with the Russians.
Funny side thing. I just heard yesterday, somebody told me that, I don't know if this is true, you probably know, but Russia's now selling their oil to China, and we're buying it from China.
I know they're selling it to China and to India. I don't know that we are buying it from China. I haven't heard that.
Okay, that's just what I heard.
Yeah, because that doesn't sound right.
Okay.
It sounds like it's because that would be technically against the sanctions. You can't.
Oh, would it?
Yeah, because you can't. I mean, I'm no lawyer, but my understanding is that you can't just use a middleman to get around the sanctions. That's that defeats the purpose of the sanctions.
Right.
So I mean, we shouldn't be doing that. If that's it could be happening. Wouldn't be. Nothing surprises me.
Right.
But it shouldn't be happening. Yeah.
So the embargo, the arms embargo on the Chinese ammunition, it was more of a political statement more than anything, right? Because essentially everything you guys were doing, which I'm sure we'll talk about, with using that ammunition and supplying it, everything was going exactly how the government wanted it to go. Like it was working perfectly.
Yeah. So the government needed this ammo, right?
The government needed the ammo.
The government needed the ammo. That was their goal, right? And now when they put out the bid, they wanted to get, no, they couldn't get the ammo from the Russians because they just put them on the blacklist for the Iranian issue, right? The Chinese have been on the blacklist since 1989. So, they wanted to get this ammo without violating their own sanctions, right? Without violating their own economic warfare policies, so to speak. And so because of that, they specifically put no Chinese ammunition, either directly or indirectly, in our contract. Now, the weird thing was that they didn't say no Chinese ammunition that violates the embargo, right? They just said none, period, right? Because there is Chinese ammunition that doesn't violate the embargo. Just like if you had bought a Chinese AK-47 or Chinese ammo in 1988 before it was illegal, while it was still legal, and you import it into the United States, right? In 1990, after the 1989 ban, you could still sell that weapon or ammo in the United States to a third party because you had bought it when it was legal. So it remained legal, right?
Right.
Once it's outside the Chinese possession, that's it doesn't benefit them economically, by purchasing that, right? Now, but it didn't mention that, right? It just said no Chinese ammo, period. So when we discovered, and I don't know if we're skipping ahead to this, but when we discovered that the ammo from Albania was Chinese originally, we saw the dates on the manufacturing. That was manufactured in the 70s. So it was way before, the 89 ban. So it didn't actually violate the terms of the embargo. But because they had put no Chinese ammo, period, it did violate the terms of our contract, if not the embargo. So It was just that the Army had written the contract badly, is really what it was. They should have put no ammunition that violates any embargoes, right? But they didn't do that. They just said no Chinese ammo, period.
That would have helped you if that would have said that.
Yeah, it would have helped us because then we wouldn't have had to worry about it. But when we discovered that it was Chinese ammo, we had to make a choice. We had to decide, we had two options really. We could say, we could go to the government, to the U.S. Army and say, hey, we just discovered that all this ammo that we were buying from Albania turns out to be originally from China, but it was from China in the 70s while it was still legal. So just want to clarify our contract. Our contract says no Chinese ammo, but you didn't really refer to this, right? Can you please give us a waiver in writing to allow us to deliver this stuff? If we had done that, two things could have happened. They could have said, yeah, that makes sense. Our bad. We didn't mean to write the contract that badly. We did mean that it should only be for stuff that violates the embargo. So here's a waiver and go ahead. We really need the ammo. Or they could have said something along the lines of, well, yeah, that's true. We wrote the contract badly, but everyone, all your competitors had to bid on that contract with that limitation, right? So it's not fair to allow you to continue to deliver that contract when, you bid ammo that your competitors technically couldn't because, they couldn't bid that out because if, we didn't know that it was Chinese ammo at the time we bid it, but if, our competitors probably knew, because anyone who actually knows the history of Albania knows that all their arms came from the Chinese. Just an interesting history. Yeah, I don't know if you want to take a sidetrack into that, but
no, it's interesting. Yeah. It's all stored in like caves and everything else because China manufactured everything. Like they moved everything to Albania to manufacture it there, right? Yeah.
So it's a bit of a mix. So the history of Albania is interesting. They were run by some dictator and during the Cold War, and who was like a real communist true believer, and he felt that the Soviets were a bunch of corrupt pretenders and who weren't true communists, and so he pulled out of the Soviet Union. Albania is a tiny little country near Greece, and he thought because the Soviets didn't like people who pulled out of their union, and they would enforce that. Like they, invaded the Czech Republic in the early 90s, I think it was, or late 80s. So the Soviets have a history of brutally repressing people who rebelled against them, and Albania knew this, so he was worried the Soviets would invade him, and so he was also worried the West would invade him because he was a communist true believer and it's a mortal enemy of the West. So he thought he would be invaded by both the Soviets and the West, and he's a tiny little country, and so he made an alliance with Mao, with Mao's China, and who he felt the Chinese were, true believers as well. So he felt okay with making an alliance with them. And the Chinese were happy to have an ally in Europe because it gives them a foothold, into Europe. And so they supplied him with massive amounts of military hardware, because he was so worried about being invaded by both the Soviet Union and the West. He formulated a plan which he called total war, where every man, woman, and child would become a soldier and fight to the death. That was his plan. And in order to support that, he built a huge network of bunkers all over Albania and filled it with weapons and ammunition that he largely got from the Chinese. Now, the Chinese supplied him with weapons and ammunition that they made. They also supplied him with manufacturing equipment, like entire factories that he set up in Albania to manufacture his own, so which would look identical to the stuff that was manufactured in China. So, there was one of the issues that was argued during the court case was that you don't even know if this stuff was manufactured in China or manufactured in Albania, right, because the Albanians had the manufacturing equipment that the Chinese gave them. So there's no way to distinguish where these bullets come from. So that was one argument, in the court case. But when we discovered that it was, Chinese ammo, we made the choice, or I should say Efraim made the choice because he made all the final decisions, but that he didn't want to have the risk of losing a $300 million contract. So rather than telling the U.S. Army what the situation was, and taking a risk that they may cancel the contract, he decided to hire someone to repackage the ammunition, to take it out of the boxes that had all the Chinese markings on it and put it into like plastic bags to protect it from like corrosion, and package that into like heavy corrugated cardboard boxes. And actually we were planning on doing this even before we discovered it was Chinese, because at the time, which is interesting, because we at the time in early 2007, there was a huge spike in oil prices, and that spike completely destroyed all our margins because we had to fly everything air freight, and the majority of the cost of air freight is the fuel. So, and because the oil prices were spiking, we weren't going to make any money on this. And so we realized that all the ammo is packaged in these heavy wooden crates. And, which is, if we removed them from the wooden crates and from the metal tins that they were in, we would save a lot of weight. And therefore we'd be able to ship a lot more bullets per aircraft and save a lot of money on transportation. And so in order to do that, we sent my good friend Alex over to Albania. We hired him for this job, and he found a cardboard box manufacturer and hired this guy to do the repackaging job. Once he got to Albania and the Albanians showed him the ammunition, that's when we discovered it was Chinese. Right. So we only discovered it was Chinese already after we had decided to repackage it. But once we discovered it was Chinese, we're like, okay, we need to repackage it anyway, but now we have to make sure that none of the documents which have all the Chinese markings on them, which are included inside the metal tins with the bullets, that none of that makes it into the new packaging. So unfortunately for us, we were pretty dumb and we said all this by email. So we left a very easily traceable paper trail of all our intentions and when we decided everything.
What does 100 million rounds of AK-47 ammo look like?
So we fit, if I recall correctly, this is a long time ago, about 15 years, I think it's been now. Yeah, about 15 years. We were shipping about 2.7 million rounds per aircraft, IL-76 aircraft, and each aircraft could hold 45 to 48 tons. So 45. So that's about 2 shipping containers per aircraft.
2 shipping, the big metal boxes you see at like the Miami.
At the port
of
yes,
Miami.
Yes, exactly. So about 2 of those, 2 40-foot shipping containers worth into an aircraft. And each of those was like a little under 3 million. So that's, so if you do the math, it's like 3 million for 2 shipping containers, and there was 100 million. My math skills are not that great right now, but it's let's see, it's 2 for 3.
It's 100 million divided by
60,
3.
So about 180 about 180 shipping containers worth.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That is totally fucking wild. And what are the logistics involved in transporting besides the planes?
Yeah.
There's a lot more that goes into transporting 100 million rounds, including hiring the people to repackage it.
Right. So that was a big job because that's a lot of ammo.
And how did that affect your guys' margins? And your guys because you guys initially didn't plan for that in the quote.
Right. We didn't, but we were saving so much money on the air freight that it was actually peanuts comparatively.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Like we were saving, I think we struck a deal to like pay something like, I think it was something like $100,000 or $200,000 to do the entire repackaging.
Wow.
$200,000,
That's
$100,000 or $200,000. And we were saving, I think, $3 or $4 million in air freight costs. So we were making way more money than it was costing to repackage.
And so and also the guy who you guys hired to do in charge of doing the repackaging ended up being a huge part of the story.
Right. So the guy who we hired to do the repackaging, he was the owner of a box manufacturing company, which is why we hired him, because we were looking for a large quantity of strong cardboard boxes to put the ammo in. And we figured, he's already has a factory, so he has access to workers, so why not hire him to do the repackaging as well? His name was Kosta Trabishka. Trabishka, which is, I think, how they pronounce it in Albanian. He was happy to do the deal. He did the repackaging. But then what happened was Efraim, of course, could never make enough money, right? He was always trying to squeeze more profit out. No matter how much money he was making, he was always trying to get more. So he kept on asking the Albanians to lower the price. He was screaming. It was actually through Henry, because Henry was who set that deal up for us. He kept on asking Henry, hey, I need a better price. And Henry's like, look, I gave you the best price. You can't get a better price anywhere. You already have a best price. And Ephraim's like, I need a better price. Fuel is so high and blah, 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 everything he could think of. And Henry just stood firm. He's like, I can't change the price. And so Efraim, he flies over to Albania. He starts talking to Kosta, and Kosta is like, I have a friend in the military of defense of Albania. I can get some information for you. And Ephraim's like, I want to know what Henry is, what they're getting paid for it. Like he wants to know what Henry's margin is, right? So Kosta finds out from his friend that the MOD is officially, the Ministry of Defense is officially selling the ammo, the 7.62x39 ammo to Henry for 2 cents a round. And Henry was selling it to us for 4 cents a round. So he was had a 50% profit margin, or 100%, depending on which way you calculate it. And that pissed Efraim off. But
you guys were selling it to the government for how much?
10.5 cents a round.
10.5?
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, we had to pay for the shipping. So
true.
The shipping was, if I recall correctly, about 3 or 4 cents a round. So we were making actually about the same amount as Henry was. Okay. Now the thing is that one thing that, we had no idea. We're sure that Henry was probably paying off some politicians in order to do this deal. Right?
Albanian politicians? Yeah,
Albanian politicians. Because he was actually very close with the son of the prime minister. Sali Berisha, I think was the prime minister's name, and I forgot his son's name. But the son ended up suing me and Efraim and Guy Lawson for defamation, by the way.
Oh, really?
It got tossed out of court. So, so Mr. Berisha, don't sue me again. Yeah. Luckily for me, it got tossed out of court. It was ridiculous. It was without merit, as the legal profession would say. But it was a big pain in the ass, and it made Simon and Schuster lose all the money that they had made off the book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they had to cover the legal expenses, which sucked for
Good
them.
Lord.
But even frivolous lawsuits can cost you a lot of money. So anyway, Henry had a close relationship with the son of the prime minister. Okay. And that's kind of how he got access to this ammo. And so we assume, obviously we don't know, but we assume he was paying people off. I don't know how much of that he was paying off, but I don't think he was keeping the entire 2 cents around for himself. He definitely wasn't. But as far as Efraim was concerned, Henry was being a total pig. And he couldn't believe how Henry was ripping us off, and it pissed him off to no end. And he wanted to cut Henry out of the deal, And so he was like, that's it. I'm going to cut Henry out of the deal. I'm going to go to the Albanians directly and they'll deal with me direct. And, we're going to cut Henry out. And so Efraim meets with the Albanians with, Pinari was the guy's name who was running the organization, that was the Albanian Export Company.
Pinari was the head of the arms company?
Of the export company. It was a government-owned company that was in charge of selling any military equipment that the Albanian government wanted to sell.
Okay.
So Pinari was the head of that organization. And he meets with Pinari, and he has this meeting, and this meeting is in the book, and that's what Mr. Berisha sued us over, was where he meets with Pinari and the prime minister's son, and another character that I forgot his name, but who was a well-known like mafia guy in Albania. And
yes, is this the story where he walks into the building that's still under construction, and there's like this Wall Street decked out office in the middle of this building that's not even finished yet?
Exactly. So Efraim, realizes the kind of people he's with, and suddenly he's like, usually he's a big talker and, really loud and, talking shit, constantly. But Alex, who was there, told me that the second he walked in, he knew he couldn't like fuck around.
Really?
He got real quiet real fast.
And he's 21 at this point?
Efraim is 21 at this point. Okay. Yeah. And they told him, look, we're not going to give you a better price. You can complain and scream and cry all you want, but we're not going to do it. We know we have the best price, in Europe, right? You're not going to get a better price. However, we know that you're also doing the repackaging of this ammo, and that you hired this guy, this box guy, who's not part of our organization. He's just some random Albanian guy, and you're paying him a bunch of money to do this repackaging operation. So if you get rid of him and you give us the repackaging operation, pay us some money for that, we'll give you a little discount on the ammo because we're making money on the repackaging operation. And Ephraim's like, deal, screw that guy. You guys are in, And so he cut the box guy, Costa, out of the deal. And Costa got really mad about that because he ended up with like $20,000 worth of boxes that he couldn't have anything to do with. He asked to be paid for it. Efraim just didn't take his calls, refused to pay him the 20 grand, because he's just like that. And Costa got really mad, and and because he knew what was going on. He knew why we were repackaging it, because we had specifically told him, make sure that no Chinese documents get into this. He knew what was going on. So he goes and he tells the New York Times what's going on, and he also tells law enforcement. I don't know if he told the FBI or it was Customs that ended up investigating us. So I don't know who he contacted, but he contacted someone in law enforcement in the United States, and they started an investigation because he contacted them. And then his biggest mistake was he contacted the Albanian press and told them that there was a whole bunch of corruption with this deal, that the Albanian politicians were getting paid off, for this ammo deal. And I think the reason that was, a mistake on his part is because he ended up dead after that under mysterious circumstances. He like a month or two after he did that, apparently he was driving by himself in his car on a flat road in a field, and suddenly had some sort of accident where he was thrown like 30 feet from his car, and they found him dead like 30 feet from his car. This is Trubisky? Trubisky, yeah.
Trubisky.
Wow. Yeah. And they, they ruled it as an accident, but it was a very strange accident because there are no other cars there, and it was a flat road, and it was just like very, very strange. So,
and also when Efraim first went to Albania, he asked you to Photoshop a bunch of fake.
That's right.
Quotes, right?
Right. Yeah. For his preparation, for his negotiations with the Albanians, he goes to me, he's like, hey, listen, I got to convince these guys to give us better pricing. So why don't you take, all the other suppliers' quotes that they gave us and just change the pricing to make it look much lower so I could use it as leverage and say, hey, look, I can go to these guys, And so I did that because, he asked me to do that. And, not that hard. You just change a few PDF numbers, They
called bullshit instantly, though.
Immediately. Like Pinari looked at it. He's like, that's fake. He didn't even look at it. He's like, don't show me that shit. He's like, I don't want to see your fake papers.
Oh my God. So, okay. Once this ammo, once you guys start repackaging the ammo, it all starts going smoothly at one point, right? Like you guys everything's going as planned. Like you guys are making these deliveries so they're departing from Albania. Yeah. And then where they're going directly to Afghanistan?
So most of the time they were going directly to Afghanistan. We did have the story with the not the AK-47, the 747. Right. The cargo 747 plane had to stop in Kyrgyzstan to refuel. And that's when it got stuck there on the tarmac.
And that's because Putin was trying to play games, and he didn't like the fact that they got blacklisted.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't like that they were getting blacklisted because they had, the Russians were supposed to be making all this money. Right. It was supposed to be their deal. Right. And so they were trying to mess up the deal so that the U.S. Army would be forced to come back to them. So they did everything they could to stop us from delivering. So they leaned on all the Central Asian countries to not give us overflight permits. So, for example, Uzbekistan didn't give us an overflight permit for like a month, and like we needed to fly over Uzbekistan. And then I had the idea, well, why don't we just hire the Uzbekistani national airline to do the transportation so that they're making some money on it, and then maybe they'll be willing to do it. And we did that. And the second we hired them, suddenly we got the overflight permit. Wow. So even though the Russians leaned on them, the Russians didn't have 100% power, to enforce that. They were, as soon as the Uzbeks were making some money out of the deal, they were happy to, tell the Russians to go fuck themselves.
What was it like for you to have to get all these flyover permits for all these countries in between Albania and Afghanistan? Like how far did you have to go? What was it like making these phone calls?
It was a pain in the ass. But some countries were easy, like Greece, we had to fly over there, some countries were fine, but certain countries, especially the Central Asian countries, were a lot more difficult. And we'd have to, we would rely on the logistics company to do it, the air freight company. That's generally their job. They're supposed to arrange all these things. But whenever they run into problems, they come back to us and they're like, hey, these guys aren't giving us an overflight permit. Is there anything you guys could do on your end? And so what we would do is we would call up the State Department in that country, the consulate, the U.S. consulate, and speak to the military attaché, right? That's a State Department officer whose job it is to interface with the U.S. military and the military of the country where they're stationed. So, we would speak to the military attaché. We'd say, we have a contract with the U.S. Army. We'd send them a copy of our contract so they know we're real. And, we're trying to, get overflight permits over this country. Can you help us out? And they would go speak to their contacts in the military and the government of the country they're in and try to work these things out. And usually they would be able to do it. it would take them like a week or 2 or 3. But sometimes, like in the case of Uzbekistan, they just made zero progress, and they're like, I don't know why, but they're just not returning my phone calls. It's very strange. They're usually not like this, but something's going on, and that's kind of where we got stuck for a little bit until we hired the Uzbekistani airline.
Wow. And so how much ammo, how much of these 100 million AK-47 rounds did you guys end up delivering to Afghanistan?
So we ended up delivering, and I remember the number because it was in the court case, 71 aircraft loads.
71 aircraft loads.
Each with about a little under 3 million rounds each.
Okay.
Yeah. So no, it was more. Yeah, because it was 100. Actually, I think they put
it's not even half, right?
Well, 70 times 7 times 3 is 21. So that's actually more than yeah. That's like that's a little bit under 200 million rounds. But it wasn't just the AK-47 rounds that we were delivering. We were also delivering 7.62 by 54 rounds, which is machine gun rounds. We were delivering other types of ordnance as well, like mortar shells and grenades and stuff like that. So yeah.
At any point did you guys actually, we talked about this in the beginning, but at any point did you guys entertain the idea of driving it there? Or was that just totally, I mean, in the movie, you guys drive through the Triangle of Death.
Right. Yeah. So we did think about using rail.
Okay.
But we were told that the security of that would not be good, and that it would be impossible to get it insured because you're driving through a bunch of like warlord territories, and if they find out that there's ammo on that train, they're going to stop the train and take the ammo because that's what warlords do. So yeah, so we looked into a few different options. We looked at like going by boat to Karachi in Pakistan and driving by truck to Kabul, or going by rail through the Central Asian countries. But in the end, it was just too risky, and we realized that we had to fly it there. And because we had the idea to repackage the ammo and reduce the weight, it became profitable to fly it there, even though it wasn't before. But so that kind of gave us, we would have made a lot more money if we were able to do a rail or boat, because that would have drastically reduced the cost of transportation. But it was also much more likely that we would lose the shipment completely, in which case we would be really fucked.
Right.
So it wasn't worth the risk.
So that's completely fictionalized scene, driving through the Triangle of Death.
So the scene where we drive through the Triangle of Death is actually not 100% fiction. It's actually did happen, but not to us. So it happened to Stephen Chin, the screenwriter of the War Dogs screenplay. Before he was writing screenplays, he was a journalist, and he wanted to cover the war in Iraq in 2003. He couldn't find a flight into Iraq because they weren't doing commercial flights. So he got a flight into Jordan and then hired a driver to drive him to Baghdad from Jordan, and he got chased by insurgents and got saved by the army. The whole thing actually happened to him. But when he was writing the screenplay, Todd Phillips, the director, was like, man, we need more action in this movie. Why don't you put in your story where you were driving through the Triangle of Death, into that? And he's
fascinating.
The Beretta deal was a real deal. But it didn't happen like that. We actually ended up not delivering the Beretta deal.
Oh, really?
That was one of the few contracts that we defaulted on. Yeah.
So at what point did you get an inkling, or did you get an inkling at one point? Did you get some like sort of feel that Efraim was gonna fuck you over?
Once the deal was going smooth, right? And once we were delivering, like we were doing like 3 aircraft loads per week, like every other day there was an aircraft delivery and everything was going smooth. We got all the overflight permits,
Once the hard work was done.
All the hard work was done. And so because all the hard work was done, I started showing up at the office less, because I didn't have to be there for 16 hours a day, talking to people, and stressing out. And so I was taking like a break. And, I was still managing the logistics and making sure everything was, the planes were arriving on time and people, were getting paid and all that stuff. And, the documents were getting sent to the right people. but it wasn't like a 16-hour day anymore,
Right.
And then he started complaining. He was like, hey, you're not, come to the office anymore. I'm like, I mean, is there a reason I should be coming to the office? He's like, yeah, I could really use your help on, these other deals I'm working on. And I'm like, are you going to give me a cut of those other deals? He's like, but you didn't set up those deals. I just need your help on them. I'm like, well, but I only get a cut on the things that I work on, Right. And he's like, yeah, but if those deals fail, the whole company goes bankrupt, and then the Afghan deal fails. So therefore you're responsible to make sure that the whole company. I'm like, well, then give me a piece of the whole company.
Right.
And he was like, okay. I'll tell you what, I'll give you 1% of the company. And I'm like, I think I'll keep my 25% of the Afghan deal. Right. Because that's like, 90% of all the money coming into the company is the Afghan deal.
Because that's what he was thinking in his head.
Exactly.
He's like, I give him 1%, I can cut him out of that 25%.
That's exactly what. Yeah. Wow. That's why he said it. And so I was like, no, thanks. If you want to give me 25% of the, and he's like, don't be ridiculous. I'm never giving you 25% of the company, Don't be ridiculous. And I'm like, well, then I'll just keep my, 25% of the Afghan deal. And then he was like, a lot of people, the other guys at this point it started off just me and him, but like by this point we had hired like maybe 12 or 15 people. So they were like, the office had a decent staff. And he's like, a lot of the guys around the office think that you don't deserve your commissions because, you're not working as hard as they are and they're making way less than you. I'm like, yeah, but that's, a different deal than what you did, Right. Why are you even, who's saying that anyway? I mean, I was like on great terms with everyone. Yeah. I was like the good guy. He was always the guy screaming at everyone. Everyone, was like, was always stressed out around him, So I was like, who's saying that I don't deserve the money I'm making? He's like, it doesn't matter. It's confidential, but a lot of guys are thinking that. And, so I'm like, you mean you're thinking that? So I'm like, what, you don't like, he's like, you don't think that I deserve to get paid what we agreed upon? He's like, yeah, I don't think that you're putting in the work that, that you need to be putting in, so therefore I think that, you're not pulling your end of the bargain. I'm like, what are you talking about? We're delivering, right? The contract's going well. Our deal isn't that I need to work X number of hours. I'm not a salaried employee. The deal is that, I get the contract to go, and then I get a commission off that contract, regardless of how many hours I put in. And he's like, listen, I'll tell you what, we'll make you a official like officer of the company. You'll make $100K a year, and you get 1% stock. That's my final offer, And I'm like, I don't want $100K a year. I'm supposed to be making like millions of dollars from this contract. I will take what we agreed upon. And he's like, well, take it or leave it, and I'm like, I'll see you in court. And I walked out the door and I'm like, go fuck yourself. Wow. I mean, like, I'm not going to do that. So I left, and it was one of the most stressful times in my life because I'd been living off my savings until this point. Right. Because like all the money I was making in previous deals, he insisted I roll it into the next deal. So I couldn't pull that money out. To fund the Afghan deal. To fund the Afghan deal. He's like, we need every penny we can get, like we need to, have your money to, I'm putting all my money in, you should put all your money in. It's only fair, and so all my money was in his possession. What was your 25% cut going to be of the Afghan deal? So if we had completed the thing to the end and delivered all 300 million, we were making an average of, okay, so we had bid it at 9%, right? Right. But Efraim had a real talent for renegotiation, right? As I experienced, right? But he renegotiated on everybody. So when we won the contract, he went back to all our suppliers and he's like, guys, I've got the contract. There's no competitors, just me. You want to do this deal, you have to go through me. Now I'm going to need a better price. I know you gave me a price before and you said that was your best price, but I need you to dig real deep because I've got other people who are going to give me better prices and I can go with them. So like he would renegotiate everything like after the fact, and he'd never stop renegotiating, which is how the whole Albanian thing blew up in our faces. But because he was so good at that, and he did a lot of it successfully, it didn't always blow up in his face. I'd say mostly he was successful at it. we ended up increasing our profit margin to about 20%.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we would have made, if we had delivered on the $300 million deal, we would have made profit about $60 million.
$60 million profit total, to which 25% of that is yours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I was looking forward to making that $15 million. And, my plan was to, as soon as that contract was done, to quit, because I couldn't stand working with him. He was just such a stressful person to be around. And I wasn't even interested in the business, to be honest. Like, it was kind of cool to be involved in like geopolitics and, and all that stuff. And like, I felt like a hot shot, dealing with all these countries and, arranging aircraft of ammo and all this stuff. But I was like, I don't really want to do this for the rest of my life. I want to do something more enjoyable. I've always been a musician. So I was like, with, $15 million or whatever it is that we end up making, millions of dollars, I'll be able to, fund a music career, fulfill my teenage dream of being a rock star, right? What teenage boy doesn't want to be a rock star?
Right.
Yeah.
So right after you told Efraim you're going to see him in court, basically you walked away from him. You didn't talk to him anymore.
Yeah.
Did you start your own company?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you had made contacts because you went to a trade show in Paris, I believe it was.
Yeah. That was one of the trade shows.
So it was one of the big, military industrial complex trade shows where there's just, what was there? Was there like drones on display and shit? Yeah.
So it's called Eurosatori.
Okay.
They still have it every year. I think you need to be in the industry to get an invitation. So it's not like you can't just buy a ticket. But if you have a company that is in that industry, you can get tickets to it. And it's focused on military equipment. So you have the Lockheed Martins, Raytheons, Northrop Grummons of the world, BAE Systems, all the companies from all over the world, not just America. Go and they display their latest hardware, and you have everything from like small arms like pistols and bulletproof vests and boots and camo gear, all the way up to like tanks and like helicopters and drones. And they had like this like live fire demo area where it was like a stadium where they had like bleachers and like a big field. Not a stadium, it was more like bleachers next to a big field, because it wasn't surrounded by people. And they had like tanks like jumping dunes and like attack helicopters shooting targets. It was super cool. It was super cool. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, they had like military robots that were designed to climb walls, and it was really, really neat.
And you were there as a young kid trying to look snazzy, trying to look like a big shot, rubbing shoulders with some
I got my best suit on,
warlords.
Yeah, exactly. We pretty much modeled our look on Nicolas Cage.
That's fucking incredible.
We're like, we got to get a suit like his, we got to get glasses like his, a metal briefcase because that looks cool, and so we were like, we got to get them to take us seriously. So that was what we did.
So you were able to utilize some of the contacts you made there for your new company. And so what did you start to do? You started just going on the website trying to find contracts to bid?
Exactly. So I figured, hey, I've just been doing this work for like a year and a half at that point, something like that. And, we won some big contracts. So I knew how the business worked. So I registered my new company with the government, and I started looking for contracts. But before that, I took like a month and a half off because I was just so burnt out. Like, I'd been working like crazy, and then I realized that I was going to make no money, and that like super stressed me out, because I realized, I better make some money soon, because I'm going to run out. And so I was like super, super stressed out, but eventually got the new company up and running, and I bid on, I think it was like a $3 million contract. I forgot what it was, like for anti-aircraft ammo. And I was informed by the government that they wanted to do the like some of the audits, which was the final pre-award phase. That similar to what we had gotten, much less intense than what we did for the Afghan contract, but they gave indication that they were about to award this contract to me. And I was going to make like $1 million on this contract, just this one contract, because I had great profit margins, like found a really good supplier through one of my contacts. And like the day before they were going to award the contract, literally the day before, the New York Times article broke. And the front page of the New York Times had my mugshot on it, as well as Efraim's mugshot, next to a picture of rusty looking ammunition. And they said that we were delivering like low quality ammo, and it was like, it became a big scandal. Because where they got that picture was we had delivered like, I think Efraim had bid on like 30,000 rounds of Bulgarian ammo. It wasn't even the Chinese stuff from Albania. It was Bulgarian ammo. And he had bid on it sight unseen. It was dirt cheap, and like, but he, it wasn't a large enough quantity to go fly over there to inspect it. So his thinking was, it's so cheap, we'll roll the dice. If they accept the ammo, we'll make a lot of money. If they don't accept the ammo, it's not such a big, loss, right? Turns out, not surprisingly, the ammo was total shit. And it was rusty. And when it got delivered to Kabul, it was rejected. They took one look at it. They're like, we're not giving this to soldiers, So they, in Kabul, they didn't have like ammo, disposal services, right? So what they did is they just stuck those few pallets of bad ammo to like the side of the runway, and it just sat there for like months, while they tried to figure out what to do with it. The New York Times, after Costa informed them about this whole story and they started investigating, they flew over to Kabul and they started talking to some of the military officers there about our company. And they're like, oh, is there anything can I see any of the stuff that they delivered? They're like, oh yeah, that stuff over there at the end of that was some crap they delivered right there. And so the New York Times reporter went and photographed that, and they made it appear like that was like all the stuff we were delivering. So the front page story was that these two young stoners, because they got in our mugshots actually from another incident where Efraim had picked a fight with the valet on his 21st birthday.
Oh yeah.
And
is this a story where you guys ended up calling the cops on the valet guy, and then you guys ended up
getting arrested? Got arrested, exactly.
And they didn't find the little baggie of coke in your sock.
They didn't. Yeah.
Right,
so
right.
Yeah, they were. So okay, I'll digress and go into. It's a funny story. So yeah. So what happened? It was Efraim's 21st birthday. This is a few weeks before we won the Afghan contract.
Mm-hmm.
We won it. His birthday is in December 15th, 16th. I forgot.
Mm-hmm.
But we won it, the contract in January, early January. So it was his 21st birthday, and he's like, we're going out and we're partying. Let's do this. And so we go, and he was living in one of these fancy buildings where they have, where they require you to valet your car. Right. Like even if you live there, you can't park your own car. But he had, I don't know what happened, but he had bad blood with the valet guy. He was this like little skinny Cuban guy.
Right.
And so we got to the valet, and the valet guy wasn't there. And so he's like, oh, he's not even here. Fuck this guy. Let me just see if I can get my keys from the valet, closet. He opens up, the closet was unlocked. He opens up. He's like, oh, here's my keys. Let's just go get my car. Right as he's getting his keys, the valet guy comes like around a corner and sees him rummaging in his closet, and the guy gets, you can't go in there, you can't do that, and he gets really mad, and he like starts running at Efraim, and Ephraim's like, whoa, I just want my keys. And, like kind of like getting back in his face, and the Cuban guy just clocks him right across the face, just like that. Like he threw the first punch. I saw it, and clocks him right across the face. And then Efraim starts, fighting him back, punching him back. There's a security guy, the condo security guy runs over, and both him and me and the security guy run at them, and we both pull. I pull Efraim, and he pulls the other guy, to separate them. Ephraim's shirt is all like ripped and like, and stuff, and Ephraim's like screaming, "You motherfucker! I'm gonna get you deported, you piece of shit!" And I'm calling the cops. And Ephraim's like, "Oh, my shirt is ruined. Let's go up and I need to change my shirt. I'm gonna call the cops on this fucker."
Mm-hmm.
And so we go up to his place, and he gets changed, and like we look out his balcony, and we see that a few cop cars, he calls the cops, and we see like the cops were right there. They were very close by. Miami Beach is pretty small. And so the cop cars, like 3-4 cop cars, like pull into the driveway of his building. And out we're like going down in the elevator, and he goes to me, he's like, "Hey, I've got some coke on me. If they're going to arrest anyone, it's going to be me. You weren't even involved in the fight. So, so why don't you hang on to the bag of coke? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, we're about to talk to a bunch of cops. So I'm like, just to be on the safe side, I'll put it in my sock, So I put like a little bag of coke, plastic bag in my sock. And we go to, we go down to the cops, and Ephraim's like, that fucker, he attacked me, you should arrest him. Mm-hmm. And the cops are like, okay, we need to speak to you separately. And they separate us. And they, the cop asks me what happened. I told him what happened. And then they go and speak to the security guard and to the valet guy. And then they come back, and the cop tells me, okay, turn around, put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest. I'm like, what? What do I have to do? Why are you arresting me? And the cop is like, oh, because the security guard said that you were holding the valet guy down while your friend was beating him. And I'm like, that's not true. That there's security cameras all over. Why don't you go look at the footage? You'll see that's not true. That this valet guy attacked Ephraim first, and I was just pulling them apart along with the security guard. So like, why are you saying that? And why don't you just check the footage, and you'll see that's not true. And they're like, yeah, we don't need to check the footage. We have a witness. So wow. So you're under arrest, get in the car, here, slap the handcuffs on. And I was like, oh, fuck, I'm so fucked. I've got a bag of coke in my sock. What am I going to do about this? I get into the back of the cop car. And back of the cop car, it's like a plastic bench with no cushions. The floor, there's no like rug under the floor. It's all like just rubber. They designed these things on purpose. And I'm like, fuck, should I take it out? Should I just try to sneak it into a corner? What if they look inside the car afterwards? What's the best thing? I decide I get taken to the. It was actually a female cop who was driving the car. And get taken to the Miami Beach, the police headquarters, and she pulls into this like underground parking garage. It's just me and her, and I'm like thinking, should I take out the coke and put it? And she's like, okay, step out of the car. I step out of the car, and she gives a very thorough search of the back seat, like while I'm standing there in handcuffs. And I'm like, okay, well, that was a good thing. Yeah, good thing I didn't put it in the back of it. That was the right move there. And then she's like, okay, face the wall. And she gives me a very thorough search, kind of like a very aggressive, like where she like squeezed my butt. I felt like she was like
cavity search.
It wasn't a cavity search,
borderline.
Thank God. but it was as close as it could get. Like I honestly think. And whatever, I'm not like, it didn't really bother me that much at the time, but now that I think about it, I was like, that was a very suspicious type of search that she gave me, not that I'm going to sue the Miami PD for sexual harassment or whatever, but she definitely seemed to be enjoying herself.
It's a compliment.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, whatever, and so then I go into the police station, and the police officer is like, okay, I want you to take your socks and shoes off and put them on the table. And I'm like thinking, I'm fucked.
Right.
They're going to find the coke for sure. And so I'm like, should I try to, then I'm thinking, should I try to should I take my sock off and try to have the bag under my foot, or should I leave it in the sock? I decide to leave it in the sock. First thing he does, he asks me to see the bottoms of my feet. So I'm like, okay, that was another good move. I'm getting lucky here. And then he's like, remove the socks from your shoes. I put the socks on the side, and he looks at my shoes. I had like just dress shoes on because we were going to go to a club. And I have flat feet, so I have orthotic devices in my shoes. These like little arch things that you insert. And he had no idea what they were. And he's like, what are these things? He's like, is this a weapon? And I'm like, no, those are orthotic devices. He's like, orthotic, what? What's an orthotic? I'm like, it's for flat feet. It's a medical thing. He's like, are you sure about that? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, there's no like secret compartments in here or anything like that. And he's like banging it. He's like looking at, like trying to see if there's like a secret thing. He like looks through like the spaces in my shoelaces to see if there's anything hidden in the, you know, like there. He tries to like to undo the sole of the shoe to see if there's anything in there. And he was just so focused on the shoes, and I guess he got distracted by the orthotic devices. He's like, okay, put your socks and shoes on. He didn't even look at the socks.
Wow.
So got really lucky. As soon as I was in the holding cell, flushed the bag down the toilet, you know, so it ended up being a misdemeanor charge of aggravated assault, which they ended up dropping because as soon as we got the security footage from the condo,
right,
you know, we were able to show that this was completely, you know, ridiculous. And, you know,
but the New York Times got their mugshots.
Yes, exactly. So that long story short, that's where they got the mugshots.
Yes.
We were neither of us looked particularly good because it was like 4 a.m. when they took those mugshots, because they like hold you in a holding cell and then they need to transfer you to the county jail, and you know, they take their sweet time. They actually put you in a prisoner transport van, which is like a cargo van with like a metal wall down the length of it, and a bench on either side.
Right.
So it's super cramped, like you could barely like squeeze in.
Yeah, I've been in one.
Oh, you've been yeah. So you know, and you know, they stick you in, and most of the people they arrest are like, you know, homeless, you know, and so, or drunkard people, and they stink really, really bad. I mean, these people haven't like showered in who knows how long, and they lock you into this transport van, and then they go chill. You know, they're smoking cigarettes. You can hear them like talking, you know, watching a game, and sat there for like, while I'm like suffocating on like fumes, you know, for like, I think it was like 2.5 hours before they decided to, you know, go drive us to the county jail. So get driven to the county jail, and then they make you wait a whole bunch of more time, and then they fingerprint you and take your mugshots. But at this point, I'm like, it's like 5 a.m. I'm like tired as fuck. I'm pissed as fuck because, you know, it's like all, you know, bullshit. And so, yes, I look pretty bad in the mugshot is what this story is supposed to illustrate. So we looked pretty bad. And of course the implication was that all the ammo we were delivering was this rusty, low quality ammo.
Which was not true. It
was just this one. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, no responsibility. Oh, you know, we should have delivered this rusty ammo. We should have never delivered that rusty ammo, you know?
Well, the rusty ammo ended up being what, less than 1% of all the ammo you delivered?
It was, it was.
Oh no, it was 0.0001%.
Yeah, exactly.
It was crazy.
Yeah, it's 30,000 rounds out of I think it was something like 150 million total, or 200 million total of all the different types of ammo. So yeah, it was a very, very small amount.
What was the term they used in the contract that the ammo? It had to be operationally without. What was the term?
Man, it's been so long. Serviceable without qualification.
Right. It had to be serviceable without qualification, meaning they didn't care if it was super high quality ammo as long as it went bang.
Right. They just wanted it to work. That's all they care. Now, which is interesting because they have a different set of standards for the U.S. forces. You know, the U.S. Army has very strict shelf life limits. Like, even if the ammo is properly stored, if ammo is properly stored, it actually could technically last forever, more or less. You know, like there is ammo from World War II that works perfectly fine because it was vacuum packed and not, you know, subject to extreme temperature changes. Yeah, it doesn't really, by and large, go bad. But the U.S. Army is super paranoid and super rich, so they have very strict, like I think there's I don't know the exact numbers, but it's something like a 20-year max shelf life for ammo that's given to troops. But they didn't care that, you know, they didn't have the same standards for the Afghan and Iraqi allies. You know, all they cared was, for that purpose, was that it was serviceable without qualification in their terms, meaning that it worked, that they would test it and it worked. It didn't, you know, misfire or anything like that. And it didn't have like a corrosion on it or any visible signs of wear, which, you know, the 30,000 rounds did, you know, they were corroded.
And so the guy from the DCIS, based in Tampa, started investigating you guys, or started investigating Efraim.
Right.
And he got in touch with the guy who was originally charged with boxing the ammo. Yeah. Started talking to him. Yeah. And then, so this guy from the DCIS who was investigating, Diveroli, what was his, like, how did he get tipped off to this whole thing? And what was his ambitions of like it seems like he was almost as driven to take down Diveroli as Diveroli was driven to do this deal.
Right. So I believe, and my memory is a little bit, I don't remember exactly how it came because there was a little bit of conflicting information. But I believe that Mentavlis, which is the guy Michael Mentavlis, he was a customs officer. He worked for DCIS, Defense Crimes Investigative Service. Yeah, he's like the Pentagon's internal FBI, and then he worked alongside customs with customs officers. Oh, okay. So he was the lead investigator. I believe he originally got tipped off about Diveroli in general. I'm not sure which one came first, but there were two things. There was one competitor who was really pissed off that Diveroli kept on winning these contracts. And this guy, I forgot his name, but he insisted that there was no way Diveroli could be legally winning these contracts. He must be doing something shady. And so he filed all these complaints with the Justice Department saying Diveroli is like, repackaging stuff which he was, but he didn't actually know that. He was talking about different deals earlier than the Afghan contract. And I think he was talking about like some weapons that Diveroli was supplying, which he was doing completely legally, but this guy claimed he wasn't. So that kind of got Diveroli on their radar. There was another incident where Diveroli allowed the State Department broker's license to expire because he didn't want to pay like a $2,000 renewal fee. And because he technically didn't need it to do business with the Pentagon. You don't actually need a broker's license to do business with the Pentagon itself. You do need, if you're going to broker third parties, like with other countries or private entities, you need a license from the State Department in order to broker military equipment. Okay. So Diveroli had this license, but you have to renew it every year, and it costs $2,000. Diveroli didn't want to spend the money. Wow. So he let it lapse, and then because he let it lapse, there was some deal that came up which Mentavlis, I think, thought he needed this license for, but he didn't have it. And so that, like, I'm not sure which came first, the competitor, kind of ratting on Diveroli or this license issue, but the combination of those things really bumped him up the visibility thing. And then the box guy came and told them about that, right. And that really got the investigation into high gear.
And it seemed like there was a political war going on between the investigator and the Army, because he kept going to the Army trying to get them to stop your contract or freeze your contract. They're like, no, like this is going fine. The ammunition works perfectly.
They so once Mentavlis discovered that the ammunition was possibly Chinese, from China, he sent an email, and this came out in court. That's how we know about it. He sent an email to the Army saying, "Hey, this could possibly be illegal. We need you to stop taking delivery." And the Army was like, we really need this ammo, and so if you want us to stop taking delivery, we need a letter from the Attorney General of the United States, head of the Justice Department, requesting for us to stop taking it. Otherwise, we're going to continue. And that letter never arrived. So I don't know if Mentavlis tried to get that letter and was denied, or he didn't try. I don't know exactly what happened, but the Army didn't get that letter. So they kept on taking delivery on it. And they kept on taking delivery on it all the way until the point where the New York Times published their front page article. So they were informed like back in August, I think, about the Chinese origin of the ammo, and they didn't stop taking delivery until March of the next year. So like more than half a year, they continued taking the delivery of the ammo, even though they were informed by, the Justice Department that it was, possibly Chinese origin, but they didn't care. They said I think the term they used was the mission, Trump, the needs of the mission trump, your request, unless there's a letter from the Attorney General. Right.
Yeah, because it was working perfectly. I think there was even generals or something on the ground in Afghanistan that were testifying that this is this ammo works perfectly. We've tested a lot of it. We've never had any issues with it.
Yeah. They had a big shortage of ammo as well. So Afghanistan has a fighting season. They can only fight in like the summertime, because there's very high mountains in Afghanistan, and in the winter the weather is so bad that nobody can really fight. You can't like really trek anywhere to conduct military operations. So the fighting season in Afghanistan was coming, and they were out of ammo, and they really needed the ammo in order to supply, the Afghan National Army to fight the Taliban. And so when we started supplying the ammo, they were thrilled, and they were like, we need more of it. We need more of it. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. And so, when Mentavlis comes and tries to put a stop to it, the Army pushed back hard against that. They did not want to stop the supply, because it was critical for what they were doing.
So what ended up happening with Mentavlis? How far did he get? How were you going to be implicated in all of this?
Right.
How did they try to wrap you up into this whole thing?
So, I left AEY, I walked out the door in early July of 2007. And, the Customs and DCIS, Mentavlis and his other agents raided AEY's office in August 23rd. Remember the date. I was, scarred, emotionally scarred. So that's how I remember that day. But I got a call. I had already been gone for like almost 2 months at that point, barely recovering from my ordeal, dealing with Efraim. And I get a call, because I was on great terms with everyone else in the company, so I get a call from one of the secretaries, and she, like on the morning of August 23rd, and she's like, hey, I just want to let you know that the federal government just raided the office. There's agents everywhere, and they told everyone to step away from their computers, and they're taking everyone's computers, and they're boxing up all the filing cabinets, and they're taking everything. So just heads up. And I'm like, oh, fuck, we're fucked. We are so fucked. And, I immediately called Alex, who was my best friend that we had sent over to Albania. So in the movie, they have me go to Albania. I didn't go to Albania. We actually sent Alex, who was, a good friend of mine, over to Albania to oversee the repackaging operation. And but in the movie, they decided it was simpler to just combine our characters. They didn't want to introduce another character, which was fine by Alex. Alex does not like the limelight, so he was thrilled not to be in the movie. But so anyway, I called up Alex, because he's my best friend, and I'm like, hey, this what happened? They just raided the office. And he's like, oh shit, let me call up, let me find out what's going on with Diveroli. He calls up Diveroli, and a guy named Danny answers the phone, who he had replaced me. He replaced my role in the company once I left. He also got screwed by Diveroli, as everyone does, But so Danny answers the phone, and Alex says, hey, is everything okay there? I need, these documents, there's new airplanes coming, aircraft coming. We need to load more aircraft loads. I need these documents in order for the aircraft to go. And Danny, Alex told me the story, and Alex told me that he hears Danny saying, covering the phone and telling Efraim, hey, Alex is on the phone. What should I tell him? And he hears Efraim tell Danny, don't tell him anything. Don't tell him anything. Just tell him there was a bomb threat, and you can't get him those documents now. Just, we have to evacuate the office because there's a bomb threat. And so Danny gets back on the phone. He's like, hey, I'll get you those documents soon, but we can't right now because there's like a bomb threat. And Alex is like, whoa, why are they lying to me? Are they like planning on blaming me for everything? Like they're going to claim they had no idea about the Chinese stuff and it was all me, like doing the repackaging. Am I going to be the fall guy? And he's like, fuck these guys. I'm out of here. They're lying to me. I can't trust them anymore. And so he leaves, he flies, he's on the next plane back to the United States. And Alex and I both, hire a defense attorney, who specializes in federal criminal cases. And the first thing our lawyers told us to do is go through your emails and search for all the keywords of all the things that you did, right? And see what written evidence there is. Mm-hmm. And so we did, and there was a lot of it. You know, we were very careless with emails. And, you know, the reason the reason we were so careless is because we were working all hours of the day and night in different time zones. And it's very hard to get people on the phone sometimes, you know? So if you have to like get them on the phone, you have to like wait till the next day for them to like be at the proper time. And we're like, you know what, fuck it, just send an email. Can repackage all the ammo. Make sure there's no Chinese, you know, documents in there, you know, it's all in email, you know? We're like, okay, this is all documented. We are totally fucked. There's no denying what we did. And so our attorneys told us, you know, look, they've got lots of evidence here, you know, so probably your best course of action is to just plead guilty and cooperate, right. You know, otherwise because, you know, what are you looking at, right? You know, you know, we're like, what's the potential here, you know? And they're like, there's a whole bunch of different ways they can structure it, right? They can structure it because the prosecutor has a lot of power of like what crimes they charge you with. Mm-hmm. So what they told us eventually, at first they actually told us, oh, if you cooperate with us, we're not going to charge you at all. You know, we don't even care about you guys. You guys are just incidental. We're really just going for Diveroli. He's making all the money. You guys didn't really make any money. So, you know, we don't, you know, you're not the kingpin here. You know, he's the guy who's making all the money and making all the decisions as well. So, you know, it's really, we just care about him. So just cooperate with us and we won't charge you with any crimes. You'll just be a witness. And we're like, great, you know, because fuck that, you know? And so we, you know, we tell them what we know. And, then nothing happens for like 6 months, you know, like during the time Mentavlis is trying to get the army to try to stop accepting deliveries. The army refuses. Nothing happens. We're like, oh, maybe. And our lawyers tell us, well, you know, depending on the political situation, they may let this go, you know, because if the army wants to keep on taking delivery, even if they know something's going on, it seems like they're not actually going to pursue it. They may let it go. Maybe there's no case at all. And then the New York Times publishes their front page article and suddenly everything changes. You know, suddenly the army says, whoa, we had no idea this was going on. You know, we're going to cancel this contract and, you know, rebid it, you know, for, to someone else. And then the Justice Department, who had told us, you know, pretty much we hadn't like barely heard from, you know, the last 6 months, they're like, hey guys, you know, we're very sorry, but, you know, we feel like we can't charge Diveroli unless we charge you guys as well because you were so involved in the whole thing. But don't worry, you know, because you guys have been cooperating, you're going to plead guilty. We're going to, you know, recommend to the judge that you get the minimum sentence. Mm-hmm. And we're like, you told us you wouldn't charge us at all. You know, now we're going to be a convicted felon, right? You know, even if we don't go to prison, that kind of fucks you up. So we were like, oh, well, we're very sorry, you know, like we can't, we have to do it this way. We're like, okay, well, you know, what can you do? So we both pled guilty, you know, and Diveroli tried to fight them for like a year and a half. He hired like the best lawyers in Miami, spent millions of dollars on his attorneys. I spent my entire life savings, which was not that much at the time because he screwed me out of all the money on my lawyer, and I pled guilty. You know, it cost me like $30,000 to plead guilty. Wow. You know, yeah. And, you know, yeah, sure. You could have a public defender, as the private defense attorneys like to call him, a public pretender. Mm-hmm. Right. And the public defenders they're working on like 200 cases. Mm-hmm. They'll barely remember your name, let alone like details of your case. But the prosecutors are only working on like 5 or 10 cases. So, you know, the prosecution in this country is way better funded than the defense, right? You know, so it's not really an even system, right, unless you have a lot of money and you could afford a few $100,000 if you're going to go to trial. That's what it's going to cost you to go to trial. Or if you even plead guilty, it's like $30K, you know, depending on, you know, how complicated your case is. So that was like all the money I had left. So I was like completely broke. And Alex had to borrow money from his parents. It stressed him out and his parents out. It was a really terrible situation for him. But we pled guilty. Diveroli tried to fight it for like a year and a half, but eventually he realized he was going to lose, and he ended up pleading guilty as well after spending like $2 million trying to get rid of the case. But he ended up pleading guilty as well. And now then they also charged Ralph Merrill, the investor in AEY. In the movie, he's a Jew who owns a bunch of laundry places, laundromats. Mm-hmm. But in real life, he was like a Mormon guy who owned a machine gun factory. So they charged him with the same thing they charged us, fraud, they called it. Mm-hmm. And just to give you an example of like how they work. So they told us when they were like, hey, we have to charge you, with crimes in order to move this case forward. They told us, so this is, what, if you guys fight us, what we're going to do, if you decide to take this to court, we're going to treat each aircraft load that you delivered to Afghanistan as a separate crime, because each aircraft load had a document that you signed. It was actually Diveroli who signed it, but I was the one who took that document and gave it to the government. So I was culpable because, I was involved. And each aircraft load had a document called a certificate of conformance. And that document said, what type of ammo was on the plane, the quantity of the ammo, the year of the manufacturer, and the place of origin. That's what, and it was a form that they gave us that we had to fill out. And in the place of origin, we put Albania, right? And they said, but you knew it was really China, and you repackaged the ammo to hide the fact that it was China. So that is an act of fraud against the United States. And you did this 71 times, or 71 aircraft, right? So each of these, so that's 71 counts of fraud, and each count of fraud can get you up to 5 years in prison. Wow. So you can get maximum 355 years in prison if you fight us. Now, and of course, it'll cost you a few $100,000 just to get a decent lawyer to even have a chance of winning. But if you plead guilty, then we're going to combine those 71 counts into one. The prosecutors have that power to do that. They could decide what to charge you with, and so therefore you have a maximum sentence of up to 5 years. And because you pled guilty and you cooperated, we're going to tell the judge that you are repentant and you're going to be a good citizen from now on, and you were very helpful in this investigation, and therefore, to give you the minimum on the low end of the scale. And who knows, maybe the judge will give you just probation, right? So just probation or 355 years in prison. Right. Make your choice, right? And so it wasn't really a choice. And that's why the federal government wins more than 98% of its cases, because the vast majority never even go to trial because of the choices they give people, because they have this type of charging power. So we both pled guilty, of course. We didn't really have much of a choice. And Efraim pled guilty as well. But one of the things that they make you sign a plea agreement where you admit all the things that you've done, and then the government makes a promise that they will tell the judge that you were cooperative and repentant, and therefore to please give you a low sentence. But part of that agreement is that you can't commit any more crimes in this period before you get sentenced, right? Because how are the agents going to tell the judge that you're going to be a good citizen from now on if you commit another crime, right? So if you commit another crime, you invalidate your plea agreement, and then they could say whatever they want to the judge. So Alex and we were scared shitless, of course, and I went back to school. I started studying mechanical engineering. I went back to being a massage therapist. I was like, I'm like out of this fucking business. I'm going to be super careful. I don't want, like, my kid was a baby at the time. My daughter had just been born. She was like 1 year old at the time. And I was like, I'm not going to miss my kid growing up, and spending, her childhood and maybe her full childhood in prison. So yes, I went back to school. I started working for a nonprofit that ran a food kitchen. I was trying to make myself look as good as possible. And of course, I mean, like, I was terrified. I mean, it's like, it kind of wakes you up when you,
were you allowed to go back into arms dealing?
So they told us to stay out of the business. It wasn't, they said, just to keep everything clean, don't do any of this business anymore.
Okay.
And in fact, I was already, because I had started my new company. As soon as the New York Times article got published, I told you I was like one day away from winning this multi-million-dollar contract. The U.S. Army said, "Oh, we just saw the articles. We can't give you this contract anymore." The bank also said that we can't finance you anymore because of the reputational risk, as they call it. So Diveroli, so the reason it took 3 years from when they decided to charge us until we were finally sentenced was because Ralph Merrill, he decided to fight it. He's like, you know what, I'm going to take this to court. And so then there was a whole preparation for his trial, and they didn't want to sentence any of us until his trial was over, because they wanted us to use us, all three of us, Alex, me, and Diveroli, as witnesses in Ralph's trial. As we were required to do, because we had agreed to cooperate. So we were required to be witnesses if called upon. So he had a trial. It went into it, like one juror refused to convict him. So it went into a mistrial. Then they did the whole trial again. There was a second trial, and then he finally got convicted. And Ralph got sentenced to 4 years in prison. He spent like all his money defending himself. He felt really bad, and Diveroli ended up stealing $1.5 million from him that he had invested. He just never paid him back. So Diveroli stole like $1.5 million, according to Ralph. This is what Ralph, what Ralph told me. And as well as spending millions of dollars on his defense, and he ended up losing, and he went to 4 years in prison. So during this 3-year period, Diveroli, of course, couldn't keep out of the business. He just, they told him not to, but he just couldn't keep away from it. So he kept on doing, arms business, but through intermediaries. But he's such like a control freak that whenever there would be like a deal that looked like it was about to happen, he would insist on cutting his own intermediary out of the communications and getting on the phone himself, so he could negotiate, because he was a very good negotiator. So he wanted to negotiate himself. So at one point he was trying to do this deal to sell, I think it was magazines to gun magazines,
right.
To some firearms dealer, I think in the Orlando area, Central Florida area. And the guy who he was trying to do this deal with Googles him, right? And all the New York Times article comes up. The New York Times article was reprinted by like every major newspaper in the world. It got into the Associated Press network, and so like I saw my name popping up and like I have like like a Google alert for like my name, and I saw my name popping up in like all these, like every major city in the world pretty much, because like all their local papers all reprinted it. So he Googles him and he finds all this entire story, and he thinks, man, this guy is in a lot of legal trouble, and he's trying to get me to do an arms deal. He's probably trying to incriminate me, to entrap me in order to get time off his own sentence, right? So he's like, I'm not going to get fucked like that. So he calls up the ATF, and he tells them what, that Diveroli is trying to do this deal with him. And the ATF agents are like, oh, that's very interesting. Why don't you keep on talking to him? In fact, why don't you introduce one of our agents as your partner? And so he introduces one of the undercover ATF agents as his partner to Diveroli. The ATF agent gets on the phone. He's like, yeah, we could do this deal, but I need you to come up, and I need to meet you in person in order to do this. So why don't you come up to Orlando, and we could close this deal. Now, he wasn't allowed to leave South Florida. That was part of the plea agreement. You're not allowed to leave, that area. And so, but he was like, fuck it, I'm going to do it anyway. He drives up to Orlando, meets with the undercover ATF agents, and the ATF agent, he's like, hey, I just bought this new HK handgun, check it out. And Diveroli is a gun nut, right? And he's like, oh, I love that. I saw that thing just came on the market. Let me see that baby. Like, oh, this thing is awesome. And he's like, we got to go shooting. Let's go to the range. Let's go pick up some ammo. And the ATF agent slaps some cuffs on him, and he's like, You're a felon in possession of a firearm. You're under arrest.
Oh my God.
Because he had already pled guilty. So he was officially a felon, which, you can get up to 10 years in prison if you're a convicted felon and you're in possession of a firearm. So they arrested him for that. And they argued to the judge that they should not grant him bail because he was already violating the terms of his bail in South Florida to go to Orlando. So he's shown that he has no respect for, the terms of his bail. And so they kept him in, I think it was county jail. I don't remember. Yeah, I think it might've been county, for like almost a year, while he was awaiting while the whole Ralph trial played out. And eventually he could have gotten 10 years for the weapons charge, for the possession charge, and he could have gotten up to 5 years for the fraud charge, for the Chinese ammo charge, because he had pled guilty, so they combined all the counts into one. They can't change that. Mm-hmm. but they could recommend to the judge to give him the maximum sentence. So he could have gotten a total of 15 years, but he ended up getting 4. So he hired the best lawyers in the business. They negotiated hard.
Wow.
He ended up getting 4, and he served, I think, 3.5, something like that. Yeah.
Wow. What was the biggest lesson you learned from this whole thing?
I would say the biggest lesson is that be careful who you work with. Be careful who you associate with in general, not just work, but and that sometimes you may think that like I thought, my thought process the whole time was like, I really didn't like working with him in particular. I didn't like the work in general. Mm-hmm. It wasn't something that particularly interested me. I mean, it's really glorified logistics, really, Mm-hmm. It's more complicated than logistics because you have to do the extra licensing for military equipment, but so it's just a more complex version of logistics. It's not the kind of work I wanted to do, for my whole life. Never really wanted to be an arms dealer. And I hated working with Diveroli just because he was just such a stressful person to be around. But I thought to myself, well, if I could just stick it out just a little bit longer, I'll make millions of dollars, and then I'm set, and then I'll be free, for the rest of my life to pursue my passions. And like, I understand why I made that decision at the time. And I think but like, sometimes I question, like, if the deal had gone well and he didn't fuck me over, right? And I made $15 million, right? Would I have stopped at that point? Or would I have been like, oh, I can make $100 million, Yeah, I'm so good at this. I'm such a great arms dealer, People tend to do what they're good at, So, I mean, I could have stopped, but I could have also very well not have stopped.
Right.
So, I think that being very careful about who you work with, and taking the long view, of, you may think that you can make a lot of money now real quick, but there's a lot of ways to make money, and what you work becomes a huge part of who you are. And so you have to be very careful about, because that's most of the time you spend is, your waking day is in your job, right? So you become the things that you work at. So you have to be very careful about what you do, that you're happy with the work you're doing, that you feel satisfied and fulfilled by the work that you're doing, who you're working with, that you actually trust them, that you like them as a person, and never think that anything, is going to be just a short-term thing, because in life, things just always extend way longer than you expect. And most of the things you do just keep on going, especially if they're going well.
Right.
Have
you, do you think about him anymore? Do you reflect on all this at all, like day to day, or how much reflection do you do? And have you had any contact with him since all this went down?
So, I mean, in the beginning, I was reflecting about it a lot because it was just such a, stressful, terrible experience.
Right.
Thankfully now I barely think about him at all. The only time I ever think about him is when someone wants to talk about the story, or, there are some things that, you know, kind of remind me of him, you know, you know, just the, you know, like I think that nobody is all good or all bad.
Right.
Right. You know, there's a lot of things I admire about Efraim. You know, one of the things I admire is his incredible work ethic. Never seen anyone work harder, you know, never. I thought it was bordering on obsession and was very unhealthy, you know, but he managed to achieve things that 99.9999% of people never achieve because they didn't have that drive, you know? So, you know, I've learned a lot about that, but I've also learned a lot about what not to do. You know, you can't, as you said, you can't live your life burning bridges. I mean, I guess you could, and he has, but eventually it will bite you in the ass. And it did. You know, he spent 4 years in prison because he had no problem burning every bridge he came across. Right. And to be honest, I mean, not that I wish this on him, you know, honestly, I don't really care. You know, I wish him the best. I heard he's married now. I heard about that. So you know, I don't know what his life is like now. I hope he's a different person, though I doubt it, you know, because Alex bumped into him after prison and he was pretty much the same guy. You know, but, you know, like you know, I don't like thinking about him. Excuse me. You know, I don't like thinking about him. And I'd be happy if I never interact with him again, you know, really? Unless if he calls me up or, you know, whatever, and he's like, hey, David, you know, I've been thinking a lot about, you know, our time, you know, that we spent, and I feel like I really wronged you. And here's a $5 million check of all the money I owe you. I would be like, we're best friends now. You know, you can buy my friendship like that. Yeah. I mean, if he apologizes and admits his wrongdoing and you know, and makes up for it. Absolutely. Yeah. You know, I'm a forgiving person. You know, I don't have like a vendetta against him or anything like that, you know, but he's never going to do that. I mean, at least every bit of evidence that I know about, you know, my experience with him is that he's never going to do that. So, in that case, you know, I have no desire to interact with him again. And I hope he doesn't hurt too many people, you know, along the way of what he's doing now.
How much money did you make overall with your whole career working with Efraim?
Not that much. I'm almost embarrassed to say.
Come on, tell us.
It wasn't that much. It was, I think, total, like, before the Afghan contract, you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 50, 60K.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, before the Afghan contract, I'd only been working for like 8-9 months, you know, so not terrible to start out. Of course, you know, that money got rolled into other deals, you know, so it's not like I actually made that money. And, you know, and then once I won the Afghan contract, I wasn't going for any other contracts. So I was just focused on that, you know, so, you know.
What are you doing now?
What I'm doing now, my favorite subject. So I got into, it's very interesting how I got into my current line of work. While I was under house arrest, I was, you know, I got sentenced to 7 months of house arrest. I felt very, very, very lucky. You know, managed to avoid prison. Any amount of house arrest is,
right. As long as you spend time with your kids, right?
Exactly. I was with my daughter, you know, and I got, you know, to eat out of my own kitchen and use my own private bathroom. It's paradise compared to prison. You know, I could play my guitar. You know, I've been playing guitar since I was a kid. And so I was playing a lot of guitar because I was bored. You know, I had the ankle tracker on my, you know, so I couldn't leave the house. And I really missed playing with other musicians in general, but particularly I missed playing with a drummer because, you know, the drums give the music the beat, which is the energy in the music. And, you know, people dance to the beat, right? Without the beat, music sounds kind of lame. So I was playing my guitar, but I really wish I could play along with the drummer, but no drummer's going to bring their entire drum set over my house. It's a pain in the butt to move a drum set. And even if they did, I mean, they would wake up my entire apartment building and they'd go nuts. So I bought a drum machine, which is an electronic device, goes on the table, has a bunch of buttons on it. Each button makes a different drum sound. You can make beats on it and play it back in a loop. So I would make like beats and you know, have like a beat to play along to with my guitar. But every time I wanted to change the beat, like to go from like verse to chorus, I like I needed to stop playing my guitar, press a button on the machine to change the beat and go back to playing my guitar, and it interrupted the flow of the music. So I was like, I tried doing it with my toe, but it was super like, awkward. And I was like, I need like a drum machine that's like in a pedal format, something that I could control hands-free with my foot while I play my guitar. And so I went online I was sure someone made something like this. So I went online looking for something like this, and I couldn't find it. And I asked my musician friends if they'd seen anything like this, and they're like, I've never seen anything like that, but that sounds super cool. Let me know if you find it, because I'll get one too. That sounds super cool. And so I did a patent search. Nobody had even patented the idea, which shocked me. I mean, it was such an obvious idea to me. And so I thought, well, if everyone wants it, nobody's making it, there isn't even a patent on it. So this is my opportunity to do something useful and constructive, with my life. And so I didn't know anything about developing electronic equipment. I started Googling it. I learned about the different types of engineering, and I was actually studying mechanical engineering in school at the time, but I was very low level. I was like doing like an associate's degree, the first 2 years. So it wasn't like I could do any of the engineering myself. But eventually I found a engineering team that could build it. I first hired people that did a terrible job. I had to fire them because, and then had to find new people. It was like a whole process. It took me 3 years. So well beyond my probation period. Right. 3 years until I got a working prototype, and it was my first product. It's called the Beat Buddy, like your buddy that plays the beat.
Yeah.
Go check it out.
Is there Google. A website?
Yeah. Singularsound.com. That's the company.
Singularsound.com.
Singularsound.com. Okay. Yeah. It's like you're playing by your singular self, And since then we've come out with 7 other products all aimed at musicians, in like a whole, we have like a cable winding device to wind your music cables. We have the world's most advanced looper, which records your music and plays it back in loops.
Pull it up. Okay.
Yeah.
Singularsound.com.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Singular Sound. Yeah. And yeah, that's the site. Yeah. So that's the world's most advanced looper pedal, which, records your music and plays it back in loops. You can do lots of different layers of music as well as.
And you just tap those little chrome buttons with your foot?
Exactly. It's meant to be a hands-free device. You see the wheel on the right side there. Yeah. You can control the volume of the different tracks as you lay them down. So you could do like live mixing hands-free. So that's our most recent and most technologically advanced product. It's a little cartoon.
That thing's incredible.
Yeah,
man.
Thank you. Yeah, so the one on the right is the cable winding device, and that one, the one on the left, the Beat Buddy, that's the first product.
Okay, and you have 7 different products now.
Yes.
Wow.
And now we actually recently launched. My brother and I, we came up with this. Idea for our first non-musical product.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. So we've always been like kind of complaining. I mean, I really shouldn't be complaining because we've done very well with the music company. We got a whole bunch of awards. I've met some of like my musical idols who use my products. It's super cool. Amazing. Yeah. One of my favorite experiences was, so I'm a big Alice in Chains fan. And like I learned to play guitar listening to their music as a kid, and their bassist Mike Inez, he came up to me at a trade show and he's like, oh, you made the Beat Buddy, I just bought one 2 months ago. Shit. I'm like writing all my music on it now with it.
That's fucking incredible.
I was like, man. I learned to play guitar listening to your music. That's so fucking cool. Yeah. It was super, super cool. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Man.
So I have no complaints, like we've done very well with the music company, but with Singular Sound. But there is the industry aimed at musicians. Musicians only comprise of like 10% of the population at most. People would consider themselves musicians, and people who buy high-end musical tech products are maybe 10% of those. Right. So the addressable market is relatively small. I mean, you could do very well in a small niche market if you have great products, which we do, and we've done very well. But my brother and I have always been trying to come up with ideas, that could appeal to everyone, not just musicians.
Right.
And so we were hanging out at my place, and we were eating mango. And mango is like very fibrous, and so it like gets stuck in your teeth. And so my brother asked me if I had dental floss so we can like get rid of the mango fibers in our teeth. And so my brother and I go to my bathroom. We're both flossing our teeth, like looking in the mirror, and we're like, this kind of really sucks. Like everyone hates flossing, but everyone has to do it, or they should, right? Mm-hmm. So what if we create a product that can floss your teeth for you? Everyone would love that. Right. And so we're like, yeah, that would totally do so well. And so we started coming up like, spitballing ideas. We had all these crazy contraptions until we realized that water flossers, do you know what a water pick is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like
what a dentist uses?
I don't know. The dentists don't use water.
They shoot
picks.
Water between your teeth, right?
Yes. Okay. I thought usually dentists use yeah, some dentists do that.
Okay.
So you could buy a water pick, which is a water flosser, which is they've been around since I think the 70s or 80s, and they've done research on the way it works is it shoots a single stream of water, and you have to like aim it at the gum line, and you trace your gum line. Yeah, there it is. There it is, right there. So it shoots a single stream, and it's like a toothpick made out of water, and you trace your gum line. You have to do both the top gum line, the bottom gum line, and then you have to point it from the inside of your mouth, pointing out, if you're going to do it properly, pointing outwards and trace the gum line on the inside of the mouth. Mm-hmm. And that's very cumbersome, and it's supposed to be an exact 90-degree angle to the gum line. If you do it like pointing up at the gum, it irritates the gum. If you point down, it doesn't properly clean because it doesn't get under the gum line. And so a lot of people, when they first use it, it has quite a high learning curve. They'll like splash all over their mirror. It won't feel effective. It takes some skill to learn how to do it. So a lot of people who buy water flossers, even though they're a lot more comfortable than string, and they've actually been scientifically verified to be more effective than string. So the water gets under the gum line and washes out all the bacteria, which string does not do. So they've done studies on this, and water flossers are more effective than string when used correctly. The issue is that a lot of people don't use them correctly. They do the angle wrong, or they don't do both sides of the teeth. So we realized, if we could design a better water flosser, all the science is there that shows that water flossers are more effective than string. But if we could solve the pain points of a water flosser, then that would be a very successful product. So I actually brought our innovation. So we came up with this, which is, we call it the InstaFloss. It's like instant flossing, InstaFloss, kind of like Instagram, but flossing.
Hold it back a little bit, like closer to the microphone. The microphone is in focus, right? Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Okay, so the way it works is it's like an H shape.
Yeah.
And which your teeth, you bite into it like that, and there's jets that shoot out from both sides, towards your teeth, and so you just put it in your mouth, and this thing turns. So you just put it in your mouth like this.
No way.
And you're done.
Sick.
And it does both the outside, the inside, top and bottom, and it's just a 10-second sweep. So it takes you 10 seconds to floss your teeth, and because the way it's built, it's at a perfect 90 degrees all the time, and so you don't have to like learn to do the 90 the angle, and you could just lean over the sink and all the water just falls into the sink, so it doesn't splatter your mirror. So it's a much easier to use device. It's faster, it's easier to learn, and like all water flossers, if it's painless, unlike string, which can cause you to bleed. So we are manufacturing this now. It's the first manufacturing run. Anyone who wants to get it, go to instafloss.com.
Instafloss.com. So the website's already up.
Yeah.
Pull it up, Austin.
Instafloss.
And Ken, so are you still in the manufacturing phase of it?
Yeah. Okay. So we're doing the first production run now.
Okay.
We're going to deliver to the people who pre-ordered. We've sold about 25,000 units to people who ordered them in advance.
Okay.
There it is.
Bam. Look at that.
Yeah. And we're raising money as well. People can also invest and become an equity shareholder as well.
That's incredible.
And we're raising money to expand because we've had like a huge back order, and a lot of retail partnerships, potential, which we need large quantity to
to do large manufacturing runs to get the price down and get it into like, you know, Walmart and Walgreens and all those stores.
That's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah,
I'm definitely going to order one of these.
Yeah, thank you.
I need one.
Yeah, everybody does.
Yeah, for real. 'Cause flossing sucks.
Everyone hates flossing.
Nobody likes flossing.
Nobody likes it. Yeah.
Well, cool, man.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing this.
My pleasure.
I'll link both of those below.
Thank you.
So people can check them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, incredible story. I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Goodbye, world.